I would like to welcome everyone to the Henry County Zoning Board meeting of Thursday, July 9th, 2015. We have some housekeeping items we'd like to take care of. This meeting is being televised live on Charter Channel 180 and AT&T UVerse Channel 99, and will rebroadcast every Thursday at 7 o'clock p.m. and is available by video on demand on the county website. Now would be a good time to turn off those cell phones. If you're going to speak tonight, we'd like for you to fill out a public hearing speaking card. We will allot 10 minutes for those in favor of a case and 10 minutes for those in opposition of a case. For example, if 10 people wish to speak on a case, they all share the 10-minute slot and so forth. And we ask when you come up to the podium that you address the board and not the audience when you come to speak. So if you turn your back to us and speak to the audience, we're going to assume you're finished and we're going to ask you to be seated. So at this time, we're going to have the invocation and pledge by Larry Babb. Now, stand.
Would you stand, please? Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day and the beauty of our nation. We pray that you will be with us and guide us in our discussions tonight for the benefit of our county. In his name we pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This meeting is now called to order. Do you have a motion to approve the agenda?
Make a motion to approve the agenda.
Mr. Nelson made a motion. Do I have a second? Mr. Alexander gave a second. Any discussion? All in favor indicate by raising your hand. Motion carried. Okay, this time we'll have a motion to approve the minutes of the May 12th, 2015 meeting. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes of the May 12th, 2015 meeting? Ms. Nesbitt made a motion. Do I have a second? Mr. Head has a second. Any discussion? No discussion. All in favor indicating by raising your hand. Motion carried. Okay. I'm sorry?
I abstain.
You abstained. Okay. Okay. Mr. Bailey abstained. Okay. Staff comments. Are there any staff comments?
Yes, Madam Chairman. The following items were advertised for this meeting but will not be heard at this time. Case number RZ-15-09. Case number RZ-15-11, case number VR-15-05-S, case number CU-15-10.
Okay, thank you. Okay, this time we're going to move to the agenda items, and we're going to have agenda item number 1 by Stacy Jordan. Oh, call the case. I'm sorry. I apologize.
Case number RZ-15-05. Panatone Development Company of Atlanta, Georgia requests a rezoning from RA, Residential Agricultural, to M2, Heavy Manufacturing for the property located at 1409 Highway 42 South in land lots 198, 199, 218, 219 of the 7th District. The property consists of 318.158 plus or minus acres, and the request is for an industrial development. The property is in Commissioner District Number 1, is being presented by Stacy Jordan.
Good evening, Madam Chair.
Good evening.
Good evening, Board.
Good evening.
The request before you tonight is for a piece of property located on Highway 42 south of McDonough at the intersection with Old King Mill Road. And this includes a 318-acre parcel, which also includes a relatively small area of land to the south of King Mill Road. The request is to rezone from RA Residential Agricultural to M2, which is a heavy manufacturing zoning district. The applicant has submitted 2 alternate site plans. The first involves 4.8 million square feet of warehousing and distribution space. The second alternate, and these site plans are in your exhibit book, show 2 million square feet of manufacturing space and nearly 1 million square feet of warehousing and distribution space. The size of this development is large enough that it's considered a development of regional impact under state requirements to be evaluated through the Atlanta Regional Commission and by the Georgia Regional Transportation Authority, also known as GRETA. GRETA has issued a notice of decision, and this notice of decision should also be a part of your exhibit books as an attachment. And part of the notice of decision involves conditions that are required to be met, whether by the county or by the applicant itself. The staff has evaluated the applicant's request based upon the criteria that is required as part of the ordinance, and these criteria points are part of the staff report, which is in your exhibit book. The staff has noted that the future land use map designates the subject property for industrial land uses, and this land use category is indicated in this gray color. So you can tell that the area that's within the hatched mark is the subject property, and the area surrounding it that's indicated in the gray is industrial land uses on the county's policy guide, which is part of the comprehensive plan. Staff has also noted that in the recent past, Phase 1 of this development was approved immediately to the east of the subject property, and that was a rezoning to M1, which is currently being developed for warehousing and distribution space. And immediately to the west of the subject property, to the west side of Highway 42, an applicant requested an M2 and received M2. And this is the location upon which the Whirlpool development has been developed. So the staff has noted that there is precedence in the area for M2, and so the staff has recommended approval of the applicant's request with 11 conditions.
Okay, are there any questions from the board members for staff at this time? Okay, I would like to ask the applicant to please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Andy Welch. I represent Panattoni Development Company, the applicant in this request. And while I'm talking, if I might, Madam Chair, may I approach the board with a set of revised conditions for you to review while I'm making my presentation?
That's correct. You may give us what you need to give us. And then we're going to give you 10 minutes for your presentation. You think you're okay with the 10 minutes? Wait, you start it when he gets back.
Right. I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members of the Zoning Advisory Board, let me just be brief. The staff has explained to you the request and the consistency that this request has with the future land use map, the policy guide for the county. Also the consistency with this decision being an M2 rezoning request, and that is consistent with all the surrounding immediately adjacent property uses that have already been rezoned to manufacturing classes, either M2 or M1. And this has already gone through what's called a Development of Regional Impact review by the Atlanta Regional Commission, which is the MPO for our area. It's also the Planning Commission for large regional projects that exceed a certain acreage or certain square footage under our state guidelines. And they have reviewed this. They have issued conditions associated with the project. Those conditions are incorporated in the staff's recommended conditions, as well as the recommended conditions that I've presented to you tonight. Just for clarity, the conditions that I've presented to you tonight are the same 11 conditions that the staff has recommended, although I have worked with Mr. Simmons from the Henry County Department of Transportation and Mr. Jordan from the Planning Department on modifications to the language that would make it relevant to the development agreement that these conditions mandate. These conditions, because there are several large transportation system improvements included in these recommendations, as well as some immediate property improvements, decel lanes, improvements to intersections, etc. That you can understand that the timing of when do these projects get done, how are the costs allocated, and who's going to be responsible for what aspects of those projects is quite enormous. This includes adding it includes a intersection of King Mill and 155, which is over at the King Mill entrance where it enters 155 by the interstate. It also includes proposed changes to the interchange of 155 and 42 highway at the BP station right before you go over the railroad tracks and the bridge. So there's significant changes contemplated in these conditions, and significant changes, roadway improvements that are contemplated by the the ARC approval, DRI approval. So in order to do that, we really need a development agreement that spells out those terms in greater detail and the timing of when those aspects of the project must be completed. So the staff has made a recommendation that a development agreement be done. We are going to be working on that before it gets to the Board of Commissioners, but it will include all the 11 conditions that you have here before you that staff has recommended. And so I've worked with staff to adjust and tweak the language so that it makes sense for both the developer as well as accomplishing the county's requirements and the state's requirements so that we can integrate that into a development agreement. I have two simple handwritten changes that the staff and I have reviewed prior to our meeting this evening with you, and Mr. Jordan has those put on the board for you. And that is, obviously, I wrote there in the first sentence here, the staff recommends approval of the request with the following 9 conditions. Obviously, there are 11. I've just struck through that just to say the following conditions. And the first sentence says, prior to the approval of the Board of Commissioners, the applicant and or the owners of the property subject to this rezoning shall enter into a development agreement with Henry County, which shall be recorded. I've added the word thereafter because obviously we can't record it before it's approved. So just wanted to make sure that was clear, that it will record it thereafter, after approval, if the Board of Commissioners does approve it. And then in talking with staff, they've asked us to include an additional condition, which we've numbered as 12, and that condition will be chemical manufacturing shall be prohibited. And this was a request that we received today from staff, and I've talked to the applicant, and the applicant is amenable to that condition being added to that. They don't have any intention for chemical manufacturing to occur, although we would greatly like to see them bring some manufacturing into Henry County, and this site would be ideal in many ways for that. With that, I'll ask if there are any questions, but we would ask that you grant or recommend approval for the M2 zoning with the conditions that you see before you, that's titled Proposed Revised Conditions of Zoning for Panattoni Development, RZ 1505, July 2015. If you would approve those with the additional 2 handwritten changes, 3 handwritten changes, including condition number 12, that would be our request for you tonight. And if you have questions, I'll be happy to take them.
Okay. At this time, does the board members have any questions for the applicant? No. I have a question, or maybe it's a comment on your condition number 10 that you gave to us.
Yes.
The staff's condition was an undisturbed buffer of 70 feet with enhanced landscaping as required by the building plan. This is a buffer of 40 feet, so you're changing it from 70 to 40.
Yes, ma'am, that is correct. That is our request back to staff. And I think it would be helpful if I could show you a visual.
Well, and I just wanted, I guess my question would be, why would the 70 feet not, I mean, is there a hardship for that? I guess I'm asking.
Well, your ordinances do not have a mandatory buffer along the roadways for a landscape buffer for the manufacturing. What staff and I have talked about, Mr. Jordan and I have talked about, is that the zoning for Phase 2 included a 70-foot buffer along the King Mill roadway, and that was there. That property was already wooded. So the buffer that was there was already an existing wooded buffer area, so that what they didn't want to do at that time was disturb already planted trees. Why go in and cut those down when you can leave them up, let them grow up, and serve as a good visual buffer? If you're familiar with this property, and I know that many of you go and visit the properties before you come to vote tonight, you'll know that on the King Mill Road side of this property, here off of 42 Highway, when you turn into the old King Mill Road section, this area is all pecan trees. And it goes back and it starts to become wooded in this area back here, but it's pecan trees along this area here. And so if we had kind of an option, what do you do? Do you require us to go in and plant 70 feet of depth, which wasn't even required to be planted in Phase 1 because it was already there? Or do we try to reduce the size of it but agree that we will do some plantings there as the staff tells us we need to do them? That way, if a pecan tree can be saved or if any existing vegetation can be saved, then that would be the case. Also, it would allow us to allow the staff to tell us where they think the screening needs to occur, and we agreed to that, and you'll see in the condition that it requires, staff has the authority to mandate a double row of Leland cypresses 6 feet in height, so that's even taller than me, to be planted in staggered rows throughout wherever the staff deems that appropriate. So it allows a little more flexibility, and the reason for the flexibility is because the condition comes from the previous zoning, and the previous zoning already had an existing vegetated buffer, and so that's where it's coming from.
Well, the way I read this, it says an undisturbed buffer, which to me means there will be no plantings unless there's plantings that have to be planted. So I think I'd have to disagree with you on what you're saying, that the 40-foot and then planting of the trees would be better, because I think the undisturbed buffer of 70 feet to me would seem to be more appropriate, because it's what's already there, and you're saying there are pecan trees. And my question was, would you have a problem leaving it at the 70 feet since that was what was already, you said it was already a condition in the previous zoning?
In the zoning of Phase 2,
Phase 2,
which is further down King Mill, and you're getting a more residential area in that direction, that is the condition that is applying to that particular property. If you will, visualize it's an open field, and then you have pecan trees staggered at 40-foot intervals. So what you would if you tell us to leave it undisturbed, then we won't plant anything in that area, and I'm not sure that the pecan trees there may be one or two in that area, but you'd leave an open field. And if you want to screen it visually, you need to plant something there. And then a portion of the property, as you turn into King Mill Road, as it turns around, does become vegetated with existing trees. So what you would do is you would preserve this wooded area here, like you're saying, as undisturbed, but there's an ant running around on my site. It looks like a Mack truck. So what you would do is this area here where it's all field and pecan trees planted out through here as a pecan orchard would be, you'd have no screen there if you go that direction, which is why the staff and I kind of worked on compromise language, and that's the language we came up with and finished up today.
Well, I noticed that you guys took out fencing, including noise barriers. Staff, was there a reason why you decided to take away fencing and noise barriers?
The staff did not have any objection to taking away a requirement for fencing and noise barriers. We recognize that for the previous phase that it was wooded and that the 70 feet was appropriate because it did not have to be enhanced. But we do recognize the good sense of only requiring a 40-foot buffer along the King Mill Road legs, knowing that it's likely that they will have to be enhanced at the applicant's expense. And so we wanted to be practical about it. And we don't have any objection to requiring fencing and noise barriers.
So, according to this new requirement on number 10, it says the buffer shall remain natural. So should we have undisturbed buffer, undisturbed 40 feet buffer there?
It's a very slight nuance, but we expect for this buffer to be enhanced in those areas where it's deemed required. And so as an undisturbed buffer, I don't think that that would be the intent. So we want it to be changed in that manner.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay. Well, it says it shall remain natural, so
Yes,
if
so
you're planting
wherever
trees, it's
there's,
not going to be natural.
well, if there is adequate vegetation, it should remain natural. But if it needs to be disturbed, then we want it to be disturbed, in the sense that it should be enhanced with additional plantings, as required by the condition.
Okay, because it's saying if it's deemed to be inadequate. Okay. I don't have anything else. I just wanted to make sure that there's coverage,
Yes, ma'am.
because
We do too.
we've had other zoning requirements for coverage, and you go out there and there's like a little twig sticking up, and half of them are dead. And you know, it's not what you envision, and you go to other areas of the state, or, you know, and you see where there's beautiful vegetation, you know, plantings, where when you drive along the road, even though there's commercial buildings there, it looks very appealing to the eye because there are beautiful plantings, and you just really don't see it. So I just want to make sure that we're not going to like mow all the trees down and then put up these little twigs that you can see through to see these big buildings. I guess that's what I'm trying to get at, and I'm hoping I'm making myself clear.
That's really, and I think that goes to the point of them doing requiring us to do a double staggered screen of Leland cypresses, so that you don't have that, and they will fill out very quickly. And if you'll recall also, along 42 Highway on the Whirlpool side, there are staggered Leland cypresses, but they're on it's a one lane shot, so you have one line of them. This is going to be a double. So you actually create, you know, a double barrier, if you will, and that will allow them to fill in more quickly than what you see on the 42 side. So it's going to be an improved buffer as compared to what's on 42 Highway. And just as a note, the buffer area around the property where it adjoins residential, correct me if I'm wrong, Stacy, that's a 40-foot buffer. So it's consistent with the buffer where you adjoin the residential properties that we have to have. So we're being consistent with your ordinance in that respect by using 40 feet. And the final point I'd like to make is that I believe the county's ordinance, and correct me if I'm wrong, has a mandate that we actually have to maintain these trees for, I think, a year, and to ensure that they actually survive. So I think we have a maintenance requirement in our ordinances, if I'm not incorrect.
Correct?
I can find that out. That's something that we've always intended, but I would like to look and see exactly where that's spelled out. And I believe that it is, but I would like to be able to see it. But yes, that is our understanding as well, and that's certainly our intention.
Okay. Does anyone else have any comments for staff or the applicant? Okay, you may be seated.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, at this time, we'll call those who are in favor of this case. So if you're in favor of the case, we're going to allow 10 minutes to speak in favor of the case. Okay, I don't see anyone coming up. At this time, we're going to allow 10 minutes for those who want to speak in opposition of the case. Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Chuck Eckstead. I live in District 1. I live at 508 Guinevere Court in McDonough, Georgia, just off Kings Mill Road. May my wife approach and hand you copies of my papers? Can she bring you my papers?
Yes.
All right, sweetheart, would you do that, please? It's critical when you take a look at this development that you look at it as Phase 1 and Phase 2. In fact, this is called Lambert Farms Phase 2. Phase 1 is this area right here that is further down Kings Mill Road at the intersection of Iris Lake. And Mr. Welch even mentioned that this part of the development was deeper into the residential area. And so as you look at the development of Phase 1, you have to take a look at the overall development and what it's going to do to truck traffic on this road. I also like to point out the difference if you look at the map that was put up with 2 buildings, the map that I picked up today has 6 buildings. 6 buildings. It's a big development. I'm not sure where that stands. I just want to make sure you have all the same information that I have. Right here is Kings Mill Road. And it comes in and goes right down here to Iris Lake Road. And I'm hoping that you folks have gotten a chance to get out into that area. Iris Lake Road is a tiny little 2-lane road with houses up and down both sides of it. In fact, I have a map of that. It's in your handout. I can show you. If you look at this map right here, in fact, let me get some of the colors out of the way. Here's 42. Here's Kings Mill Road. This pink is Iris Lake Road. What I want you to see is, do you see all these plats and all these houses that are right here? All of those have driveways and mailboxes and kids playing in the driveway shooting hoops on their little portable basketball goals and cats and dogs. If you go this way on Iris Lake Road, you run into Williamsburg Plantation. So when you see Phase 1 development and then you take a look at Phase 2, all of this truck traffic has to head to Highway 42. If you look at Midland across the street, you have Midland across the street, you can even see it on this map. One end dumps on Highway 155 right next to the interstate, and the other end dumps on the State Road 42, Federal Highway 23. No matter which way the trucks go, they're not going to dump into residential neighborhoods. The size of this development is huge. In fact, it is a development of regional impact. And I'd like to show you the numbers from the DRI that was performed. The DRI shows daily trips. This is from DRI number 1 or Phase 1. Down right next to Iris Lake Road, they're putting 2 entrances in there on Kings Mill, right next to Iris Lake. 6,362 vehicles a day from Phase 1. 6,362 vehicles a day from Phase 1. Of that, 25% are expected to be heavy trucks, 1,590. That's Phase 1. DRI number 1. Let's take a look at the other study, DRI number 2. Phase 2 is going to put 8,093 vehicles a day. 6,000 cars and 2,000 heavy trucks. When you run those numbers together, that's 14,455 vehicles a day. 3,613 are trucks. Now what's going to happen when all this traffic lines up at Kings Mill Road? I want to point out Old Kings Mill Road is not a signalized intersection, it's just a stop sign. Kings Mill Road is signalized, but as soon as you get across it headed towards the interstate, you got to get past the Norfolk Southern line, there's constantly trains here loading out from the industrial park at Midland. So all this truck traffic, 14,000 vehicles a day got to get out on Kings Mill, got to get out on 42. They're adding 7 more entrances to Kings Mill Road. They got one, they're working on, the ones here is proposed, and they're working on this one right here. They're adding another one proposed here, 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 and here. That's 7 more entrances onto Kings Mill Road to handle the 14,000 vehicles a day. In addition to the 2 that are already Phase 1, that's 9 entrances. When that traffic backs up, because this is the only way we get out of here. When that traffic backs up, it is going to dump onto Iris Lake Road and Kings Mill Road. It's just going to happen. It's like water. The trucks are going to go where they're going to go. They're going to come out of these industrial parks, hit their GPS and say, recompute, new route. They're not going to sit in this in this line here trying to get to 42. They're going to come out here at Iris Lake Road. And they're going to, if they take a left, they're going to wind through a little tiny country road. I mean, I don't even know if that thing's 12 feet wide. Drops off into a ditch on both sides. Mailboxes and curb cuts every 50 feet. All the way to get down to Racetrack, make that turn, and then hopefully get on Highway 155. They're probably going to go this way, south, on Iris Lake Road. First thing they got to do is get across this earthen dam. They got to cross Iris Lake on an earthen dam. Okay, we're talking 3,500 trucks a day trying to get access to 42. How many of them trucks are going to cross that earthen dam? I am confident that dam is not rated for that kind of truck traffic. And every time I have this argument, I've been fighting this for 5 or 6 years since Phase 1 went in. So I've been through this. I want you to know this has been an ongoing discussion I've been having here. That ain't rated to carry that. The first road, when they get down here, right next to Tussahaw Elementary School, they're going to take a right on John R. Williams and go right through Williamsburg Plantation. It's a straight shot back to 42, right down the middle of that neighborhood. So, they can't go this way. It's going to get backed up. They're either going to take Iris Lake Road to Racetrack 155, or they're either going to go south and get on R. Williams and go through the Williamsburg Plantation, or heaven forbid, they're going to get on Kings Mill Road and take it towards Old Jackson Road and Highway 81. 14,000 vehicles a day, 3,600 trucks a day. You do not have the infrastructure to approve this. If Iris Lake Road was another state highway and the trucks could go either way, I'd grant it to you. But you can put up all the no trucks allowed signs you want. Them trucks are coming. They're coming, and they're going to drive right through our neighborhoods. And I'm here to tell you, I'm not talking about property values or congestion. I'm talking about life and death. I'm talking about people dying. Minivans stuck full of moms and babies in it, stuck between two semi-trucks, getting squashed. Or a kid running out chasing his basketball out of the driveway and a truck can't stop and kills him. I'm talking about life and death here. You have got to look at this thing and conscientiously ask, what would you do if your house was right here? If that was your house, how would you vote? If that was your house, how would you vote on 14,000 new vehicles a day? Zooming past your mailbox. 9 entrances on King Mill Road. I know there's some improvements that are scheduled to make widen some roads here and there, but it is not ready to handle this kind of truck traffic. Okay. Do you have any questions for me? I think I've covered just about everything. I don't want to sit here and just beat a dead horse. Is there anything else that you'd like to ask about the information I presented to you today?
Sir, this is a comment period, and you don't have interaction with the board. We'll
Okay,
ask
I
the applicant.
apologize.
That's
I'm
okay.
just trying to make myself...
No, you're fine.
Okay, I'd like to point one more thing out.
You have
And
1 minute and 58 seconds.
I got it. Okay. On June 18th, you put the sign up. And you put the sign up on here on Old Mount Zion Road, or Old Kings Mill Road, forgive me. I didn't even know they were developing this land. I didn't even know they were developing this section over here until I went into the zoning office today. The sign you put up on June 18th said RA to M1. So we all ran up and looked at the sign and said they're rezoning it to M1. Then a week later, you came back and changed the 1 to a 2. Now, I don't know if you've met the requirement for notifying people of a public hearing or for this rezoning, but at best, there are people who thought it was just a rezoning to a lower zoning, a lower level of zoning than a heavier M2 zoning. So I question whether or not you've legally notified of this public hearing and can vote today on this decision. But that's a technicality. I'm begging to your humanity to think about what you're going to do here today. if you are going to approve this, then I'm going to ask you to make a condition to put a trench right here and just kill Kings Mill Road. If you're going to approve this as is, do not let those trucks get into our neighborhoods. Kill it. I'd rather see you dig a trench right there and close Kings Mill Road and just let the whole daggum thing be an industrial park than set this up for trucks to come whizzing past our front doors and past our mailboxes. Ladies and gentlemen of the board, thank you very much for your time, and you've been very gracious.
Thank you. Okay, we have
7 seconds.
7 seconds for anyone else who would like to speak in opposition of the case. Okay, I don't see anyone else coming forward, so if we can ask the applicant to please come back up. So at this time, the board, if they have any questions for the applicant or staff, we're going to ask the board to ask their questions now. Anyone have any questions?
Yeah.
Mr. Head?
David was good about the traffic.
What's the question?
I live there too, so I live on that road. Being able to patrol that area so that those trucks do go onto 42. What would DOT, how would they play into this?
I know that on recent board action on the Eastern Driveway Phase 1, the site's access was approved by the Board of Commissioners with restricting trucks. They have to turn right when they leave. And the intent there, we're going to put basically a height restriction bar across the lane where you come out and turn left, as in for like the employees, but the trucks aren't supposed to come out that way. On King Mill, as far as I know, we would have no trucks and we'd have law enforcement. We'd have no truck signs east of the Eastern Industrial Driveway, which exists in Phase 1. So I would think we would definitely have it signed and hopefully have substantial law enforcement in the area, especially when it first opens, to hopefully enforce or reinforce trucks are not to go east of the easternmost Phase 1 driveway.
I know that some years ago that a lot of work was put into developing a truck route ordinance for the county, which is where trucks that are going through traffic, and unless they have a manifest, they can't go on to any other roads. My question is Iris Lake Road on that truck route ordinance and map?
No, sir, it's not.
All right. So unless a truck that is, any truck, whether it's from this development or not, unless they have a manifest to make some delivery on that road, they cannot travel on Iris Lake Road.
Not me.
Okay, well, and I see that there are 1, 2, 3, 4 points of access onto Highway 42 from this development, if I'm looking at this plan correctly.
If you're counting Old King Mill Road as one of them, I think that's correct.
Right, it's got some points of access, but say out of building B, for example, that's, in the current phase, there's a exit that's close to the intersection of Iris Lake Road and King Mill Road, but based on what you said, they could only turn left out of that development and not right towards Iris Lake Road.
The trucks are to only turn right out of that and head west towards State Route 42. Employees can go either direction so long as they're not driving tractor trailer, that
All right,
is.
so my point is that there is a way to regulate through truck, traffic. And let me ask you this, let's take, for example, the Westridge and Panatone development that's on 155. And I know there's truck congestion on Highway 155, but is there a lot of truck traffic that's generated, from those industrial parks?
Yes, sir, I'm sure there is. I mean,
Yeah, there is a lot, but it goes in, different directions, that's my point.
Yeah, this site will probably, obviously it's got access to 42, so some trucks probably, particularly for trucks leaving kind of the northwestern part of the site that's north of Old King Mill, a lot of those should head towards 42 at 155. Probably not the majority, but quite a few. And whereas the warehouses on King Mill Road that are further from 42, that is what they use, is King Mill and 155.
So we do have the ability to, put up signage on King Mill Road to direct truck traffic towards Highway 42, not towards Iris Lake Road and the earthen dam, which really was rebuilt in the early 90s as a result of damage from Tropical Storm Alberto.
Yes.
So that would keep it out of the residential area is what I'm saying, by proper signage and, of course, enforcement.
It will keep out truck drivers that are obeying the law.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Elton?
I witnessed that discussion at the commissioners' meeting. It was quite extensive. There was some, like, as you mentioned, go into a little bit more detail about the height bar and how that would affect what we're talking about today. Could that possibly be done as well here?
Well, at this time, it's just to go over that one particular driveway that's in Phase 1, because you could have truck traffic between a site within Phase 2 going to a different site within Phase 1 or within each phase. But that's where the height bar restriction is on the easternmost driveway in Phase 1. Or it's where it will be. It's not there yet.
All right, thank you.
I have a question, and I'll get to the applicant in just a second. Is it correct that a sign was changed from M1 to M2, and was there enough time allotted to give the residents or those in the area, property owners, time to respond?
Yes. Yes, the sign was posted on the 18th advertising M1, and M1 was in error. The Georgia Zoning Procedures Law requires 15 days, and it was posted with the correct zoning request of M2 on the 24th. And so that met the 15-day requirement.
Okay, that's I wanted to address that. And maybe David could answer this. Has there been any accidents in that industrial area where there has been a fatality?
I don't know. I really don't. I'm not aware of one, but
Okay.
I'll qualify to say
I'm just asking because that was one of the concerns about the fatality. Okay. So now to the applicant. How would you address some of the concerns that was raised by some of those that were in opposition of this case?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Madam Chair. Let's go right to the truck traffic issue. What you've heard tonight is the speculation that all of the truck traffic or a substantial portion of it is going to turn and drive down Iris Lake Road. And if any of you have driven Iris Lake Road, you know that on either side of it, either of the outlets of Iris Lake, there are no signalization, there are no turn lanes by which would facilitate, and the radius turns at Racetrack Road or down at Harris Drive, neither of which have the radii for a tractor trailer to turn. So for a tractor trailer to venture onto that road, they're going to delay their logistical delivery by hours. It would be a mistake for a truck driver trying to make a living to turn out and go on Iris Lake. So just practically speaking, that would be a fool's errand to begin with, just from an employment standpoint of a driver. But aside from the practical aspects of it, the reality of the project is this fronts 42 highway. The road requirements that Mr. Simmons is requiring from Henry County and from the state are such that improvements will be made to Old King Mill Road so as to handle this truck traffic and to facilitate the utilization of that road. Furthermore, if you are a truck coming out of any of the side entrances or exits from Phase 1 or Phase 2, the quickest way to the interstate is to go out New King Mill Road to a traffic light intersection, to drive into Midland Park and around to another traffic lit intersection, both with which have radius turn ratios for tractor trailers to get onto I-75. There's no drive factor to move anywhere but to 42 Highway or across 42 Highway to 155. And this project, by virtue of what the staff is exacting in terms of requirements of the developer and the state as well, are forcing us to make serious modifications to both of the major interchanges that will be impacted by this development. But aside from the truck traffic, which again I think is inflated and speculative, but aside from that issue, you have a fundamental problem in not granting the zoning, and that is this project site is here. It's surrounded by industrial property that's already been zoned, and it's also surrounded by property that's to be zoned industrial. And if you were to choose not to zone it based simply on speculative truck data, then you're saying you're going to leave a pocket of land that could only be used for residential purposes. So let's think about what the consequence of that decision is. Then you may be left with the landowner developing a subdivision in the middle of all the truck traffic. Is that the right policy decision for this body or the Board of Commissioners to make? I would submit to you it's not. I would submit to you would only be creating a bigger problem, and you frankly would be doing a spot zoning in the middle of an industrial area. So for those reasons, we think that the application not only is proper, but we also believe that the conditions that we are proposing to you tonight for you to adopt accomplish a lot of the issues, address a lot of the transportation issues, road construction issues that are there. And to the extent that a sign needs to be placed to remind truck drivers to turn right and go out Old King Mill Road to 42 Highway, I think that would be fine. There wouldn't be a problem with us putting up signs to remind drivers to turn that way. But I think David's right. Enforcement and the signage would be helpful, but most significantly and practically speaking, if a truck driver wants to keep his or her job, they better not turn left and go down to the Iris Lake Road, or they're going to be waylaid for a long period of time. So I think those are the reasons why I would ask that you move forward with our recommended conditions and the penciled changes we've made.
Thank you. Do any of the board members have any questions for the applicant? Mr. Alexander.
Yes, sir. We've heard a lot about the traffic, and obviously there's a lot of concern out there. Tell us about the benefits. Maybe some of the benefits. How many of those cars are going to be employees going to this facility?
Yes, sir. We don't have. I don't know what the ultimate users will be for the facilities, but what you see are employment as an employment center. You're going to be generating jobs for this area. I don't know the numbers. I believe, and I may be off by 100 or so, but I believe just the Home Depot site that is the e-commerce building located at 155 and Hampton Locust Grove Road and that general facility employs about 700 people. And that's for an e-commerce site to ship out. Now, there are facilities that are smaller that generate smaller number of employees, certainly. These are very large facilities located in the industrial heart of our community. The tax base alone will be significant, far outweighing the projects, the cost of projects that we're talking about building in terms of road improvements. So you have employment, tax base, and you have the enhanced attraction of possibly doing manufacturing in this location given its close proximity to Norfolk Southern's rail line as well as the interstate. And I should also just advise the board on this. The Board of Commissioners has adopted a resolution calling for a new interchange to be studied and located in the heart of this industrial area for the purpose of encouraging more and more trucks to go to that interchange as opposed to the congested interchange at 155, which is interchange 216, I believe. And at that interchange is congested with trucks now. The Board of Commissioners has already taken the affirmative step, and the citizens of this county have already adopted a SPLOST, passed a SPLOST that calls for $5.5 million to be applied toward a new interchange along I-75 to study it, to do the engineering, all for the purpose of putting that interchange right in the heart of the industrial corridor to pull those trucks off of 155, off of 42, put them right on the interstate where they need to be, and to take them off the burden off of that one interchange that we now know as our industrial interchange at 155. So there's a lot of foreplanning going on in this community. People thinking ahead, what is best for traffic congestion, what is best for transportation, what is best to attract businesses to our community so they can get their goods on the interstate and into the marketplace as quickly as possible. That forward thinking is going on now, and this just coincides with that forward thinking.
Anyone else have any questions for the applicant? Okay, you may be seated. I'm sorry, Mr. Risher.
Well, I have a question for David, if that's all right. If you could tell us in terms of traffic over a 24-hour period, there's different peak traffic situations, AM and PM, for example, with different types of land uses. Now, say a manufacturing facility was built, or say if this was a shopping center, how would the peak traffic load on some of the surrounding roads differ from that of industrial warehouse facilities where you might have trucks coming in at all hours of the day, even in the middle of the night, and probably dispersed over a long period of time? Could you comment on that?
Yes, and you didn't mention it. Residential obviously is heavy AM leaving, heavy PM getting home. Trucks, the industrial, typically the trucks they try to run against traffic, so they'll probably have a higher coming in the AM peak and a leaving in the PM peak. And they are spread out. Typically a 24-hour facility, so you probably will have some night trips. And shopping is typically, I guess, from, say, 10 a.m. to whenever it closes, 10 or 11 p.m. at night or 9 p.m. So it's basically during the day when most everybody else is out also. I don't know if that answers your question. But
Yes, it did. Thank you.
Mr. Head?
Today, if this became a potential problem, what would be putting a roundabout there at King Mill? At Irish Lake in King Mill.
Well, the trucks aren't supposed to go that way, and even the employee distribution is not heavy out to the Irish Lake side. So, I mean, if something were to happen there, it'd probably be based off existing traffic plus whatever volumes are going to grow over time for whatever additional development, including residential. And, you would figure in whatever employee distribution you'd have going that way. Right now, it's four-way stop. I don't know the level of service off the top of my head, but as far as I know, it operates pretty well right now as a four-way stop.
Okay, the applicant may be seated if there are no other questions. Can we please call the case?
Case number RZ-15-05, Panattoni Development Company of Atlanta, Georgia requests a rezoning from RA Residential Agricultural to M2 Heavy Manufacturing for the property located at 1409 Highway 42 South in land lots 198, 199, 218, 219 of the 7th District. The property consists of 318.158 plus or minus acres, and the request is for an industrial development. The property is located in Commissioner District 1.
Do you have a motion?
Madam Chairman, I'll make a motion that it be approval of rezoning from RA to M2 with the new proposed revised condition, with another condition that be put into this, that there be no production of chemical product.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second by Mr. Babb. Any discussion? All those in favor indicating by raising your hand. Motion carried. Okay. We can call the next case.
Case number R0RD-15-01-8, an amendment to Chapter 67 of the City of Hampton Code of Ordinances, which provides for zoning so as to delete the definition carport in its entirety and substituting in lieu thereof a new definition of carport, to provide for severability, to repeal conflicting ordinances, to provide an effective date, and for other purposes. This is for the City of Hampton and is presented by Mr. Stacy Jordan.
Good evening, Madam Chair, board members. The item before you tonight is based on the initiative of the City Council of Hampton. They have instructed the city staff to construct an ordinance amendment, and the city attorney has done that. This ordinance amendment is in your exhibit books as an attachment to the staff report, and it's ordinance number 402. And I'd like to take a moment to go through, first of all, what the current ordinance requires, and then to go through what the new ordinance amendment will provide. And let me just say, first of all, we'll refer to the definitions of carport and garage, and this is the first attachment in your staff report. If I could direct your attention to Section 67-22 definitions. Currently, the definition of carport shall mean a covered structure used for housing at least two vehicles and has the following minimum dimensions.
Do you mind removing that
Certainly.
map? I just don't want to confuse television viewing audience. I don't want them, if somebody just tuning in, they might think that's what we're speaking about. Thank you. I apologize.
Yes, ma'am. We're discussing a carport in the city of Hampton. It says a structure used for housing at least two vehicles and has the following minimum dimensions: vehicular entrance height 8 feet, interior height 8 feet, vehicular entrance width 16 feet, and overall garage width and depth 24 feet. The floor shall be constructed of concrete or asphalt. If fully or partially enclosed, the floor shall be concrete. Concrete floors shall be reinforced where appropriate and a minimum of 4 inches in thickness with appropriate fill and base. Asphalt floor shall be a minimum of 2-inch type E or F asphalt topping, binder, and 4 inches of graded aggregate base. Where carports are constructed, such structures shall not be enclosed for living space, storage purposes, or any other purpose without first obtaining a variance from the city and constructing an attached residential parking garage. So what that means is if you enclose it, it requires a variance from the city council, and you have to replace it with an attached residential parking garage. So on the next page, I'd like to draw your attention to the definition of residential parking garage. And this is currently. It says, shall mean an enclosed structure attached to or part of the principal dwelling used for housing at least 2 vehicles and has the following minimum dimensions: vehicular entrance height 8 feet, interior height 10 feet, vehicular entrance width 16 feet, and overall garage width and depth 24 feet. The floor shall be constructed of concrete. Concrete floor shall be reinforced where appropriate and a minimum of 4 inches in thickness with appropriate fill and base. Where residential parking garages are constructed, such structures shall not be enclosed for living space, storage purposes, or any other purpose without first obtaining a variance from the city and constructing an attached residential parking garage. So it's the same sort of requirement that they can be enclosed if you receive a variance from the city council, but you have to construct an attached residential parking garage to replace it. If I could draw your attention to the next page, this is section 67-275, administrative variances, and on the next page it lists 4 of them, and I just want you to notice that it doesn't involve anything about enclosing garages. So let's look now at what the ordinance requires. The ordinance amendment, ordinance number 402, which is the next page and following, it states, section 1A, it deletes that definition of carport that we just read in its entirety, and it substitutes in lieu thereof a new definition, and that reads as follows. Carport shall mean a covered structure used for housing at least 2 vehicles and has the following minimum dimensions: vehicular entrance height 8 feet, interior height 8 feet, vehicular entrance width 16 feet, and overall garage width and depth 24 feet. The floor shall be constructed of concrete or asphalt. If fully or partially enclosed, the floor shall be concrete. Concrete floor shall be reinforced where appropriate, and a minimum of 4 inches in thickness with appropriate fill and base. Asphalt floor shall be a minimum of 2-inch type E or F asphalt topping binder and 4 inches of graded aggregate base. Now this is where it gets interesting. Where carports are constructed, such structure shall not be enclosed for living space, storage space, or any other purpose without first obtaining an administrative variance from the city. In addition to all other requirements for an administrative variance under this ordinance, applicants must also meet the following requirements, and there are 6. Number 1, where applicable, applicants must obtain the prior written approval of their homeowners association, certifying that the enclosure complies with all terms, conditions, and restrictions contained in their neighborhood covenants, CCRs. A copy of this written approval must be submitted along with the application for administrative variance. Applications submitted without this approval will not be accepted. Number 2, all applications for an administrative variance to construct an enclosed garage must be presented to the city for prior review and approval. Number 3, the applicant must submit plans and pictures to the city illustrating the proposed enclosure. Number 4, if the application for administrative variance is approved by the city, the applicant must next obtain all appropriate permits from the city's building department. Number 5, the final enclosed garage must be inspected by the city's building inspector, and a certificate of occupancy must be issued. And finally, number 6, notwithstanding anything in this ordinance to the contrary, no administrative variance to construct an enclosed garage will be issued where the applicant will not have adequate parking remaining after the enclosure. The decision of what constitutes adequate parking shall be in the sole discretion of the city. Now, what is not listed in this section is the requirement to build a replacement 2-car garage. So let's go on to B, which addresses residential parking garages. B deletes the definition of garage residential parking that we had read previously in its entirety, and it substitutes in lieu thereof a new definition of garage residential parking to read as follows. Garage residential parking shall mean an enclosed structure attached to or part of the principal dwelling used for housing at least 2 vehicles and has the following minimum dimensions: vehicular entrance height 8 feet, interior height 10 feet, vehicular entrance width 16 feet, and overall garage width and depth 24 feet. The floor shall be constructed of concrete. Concrete floor shall be reinforced where appropriate, and a minimum of 4 inches in thickness with appropriate fill and base. Where residential parking garages are constructed, such structures shall not be enclosed for living space. storage purposes, or any other purpose without first obtaining an administrative variance from the city. In addition to all other requirements for an administrative variance under this ordinance, applicants must also meet the following requirements, and there are 6. Where applicable, applicants must obtain the prior written approval of their homeowners association, certifying that the enclosure complies with all terms, conditions, and restrictions contained in their neighborhood covenants, CCRs. A copy of this written approval must be submitted along with the application for administrative variance. Applications submitted without this approval will not be accepted. Number 2, all applications for an administrative variance to construct an enclosed garage must be presented to the city for prior review and approval. Number 3, the applicant must submit plans and pictures to the city illustrating the proposed enclosure. Number 4, if the application for administrative variance is approved by the city, the applicant must next obtain all appropriate permits from the city's building department. Number 5, the final enclosed garage must be inspected by the city's building inspector, and a certificate of occupancy must be issued. And finally, number 6, notwithstanding anything in this ordinance to the contrary, no administrative variance to construct an enclosed garage will be issued where the applicant will not have adequate parking remaining after the enclosure. The decision for what constitutes adequate parking shall be in the sole discretion of the city. And I'd like to note at this time that this section also does not require a replacement two-car garage. Now, Section 2 says, Code Section amended. Chapter 67 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Hampton, Georgia is hereby amended by amending Section 67-275 entitled Administrative Variances to add a new subsection 5 thereunder 2 as follows. Number 5, enclosed garages, meeting the requirements of Section 67-. Now, this is left blank. So far, all that we have read are the definitions that are listed in Section 67-22. Section 67-22, as amended, removes the condition that requires a replacement two-car garage, either for a carport enclosure or a garage enclosure. So it's my understanding that that blank should be Section 67-22. The following sections talk about how this ordinance is codified and the intention and so forth like that. What was not addressed is Section 67-161.4. And what that says is letter H, garage conversions are permitted only where the required two-car garage requirement is otherwise met on the lot. And Section 67-161.4 is the section entitled Design Standards for Single-Family Dwellings. Now, this section was not addressed by this ordinance amendment. It seems to be the intent of the city to not require two-car garages to be replaced. If that is to be accomplished, then there needs to be another section added to this ordinance amendment, ordinance number 402, to address Section 67-161.4 in letter H to simply delete it. And so if that's the pleasure of the board to make that recommendation, then that needs to be a part of the motion. But the staff has evaluated the request and does recommend approval of the ordinance.
Okay, do we have any comments from the board for staff at this time? Okay, Mr. Bailey.
Ask you a question adding to this about replacement of the garages. Can the City of Hampton, when they review this, and they will review this, right, and approve it,
Yes.
they can at that time add language, the changes to add?
Yes. Yes, sir, that is correct.
I guess I feel a little bit unconfident what their thinking is on this. I'd hate to go one way or the other and put a blanket statement in here that may not agree with them. So.
Yes, sir. Now, as a part of your motion, this board can recommend approval of the ordinance, but you can add comments if you wish, and we'll send those forward to the City Council when it's considered to state about they need to address at their meeting Section 2 and leaving blank section 67-blank. Also, they need to be aware, and that can be a part of the motion as well, that section 67-161A and letter H was not proposed to be amended, and it's uncertain whether they wish to require the garage replacements or not. If they wish to continue with the garage replacements, it's appropriate to leave letter H in section 67-161.4.
So we can add comment. Okay. Well, another question is under both item 6's A6 under carport discussion in the garage. It states the decision of what constitutes adequate parking shall be in the sole discretion of the city. We in a work session had talked about that this should be a paved parking. Does this cover the decision being made by Hampton cover what type of paving is, or should we make comment at this time that it should be paved?
As it is written, when it says shall be in the sole discretion of the city, that allows the city to require paved parking, but it also allows the city to allow non-paved parking. So if it's the recommendation of this board, it needs to be a part of the motion that that language be amended.
Okay. All right.
Any other questions for staff? Okay, at this time, we'll have a public comment. Those in favor of the text amendment, please come forward. Okay, any of those in opposition of the text amendment? Okay. If we can call the case.
Case number ORD-15-01-H, an amendment to Chapter 67 of the City of Hampton Code of Ordinances, which provides for zoning so as to delete the definition carport in its entirety and substituting in lieu thereof a new definition of carport, to provide for severability, to repeal conflicting ordinances, to provide an effective date, and for other purposes. This is for the City of Hampton.
Any other motion?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Bailey?
I'd like to make one. Make a motion that we recommend to the City of Hampton that they approve the amendments to Section 6722 and definitions, and 67275 administrative variances with recommendations. And the recommendations I would like included are that they take in consideration Section 67-161.4, item H, that states garage conversions are permitted only where the required two garage requirements is otherwise met on the lot. To take that into consideration when they look at this ordinance. Also, that they consider adding language that any additional parking areas required will be paved.
Have a motion with additional recommendations. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Risher. Any discussion? All those in favor indicating by raising your hand. Motion carried. Oh, I'm sorry. Any opposed? Okay, with one opposed. Okay, motion carried. Okay, I'll call for the next case, and I'm going to step aside and let Mr. Nelson handle this since it's in my district.
Case number RZ-15-10. LHAC Comfort Solutions of McDonough, Georgia requests a rezoning from C1 Neighborhood Commercial to C3 Highway Commercial for the property located at 2158 Highway 155 North in Land Lot 6 of the 7th District. The property consists of 0.720 plus or minus acres, and the request is for a commercial business. This is in Commission District 4 and is presented by Ms. Josephine Medina.
Requesting to rezone the subject property from C1 Neighborhood Commercial to C3 Highway Commercial for the purpose of HVAC contracting. HVAC contracting is currently under the ULDC definition of heavy consumer goods and services. Heavy consumer goods and services are not permitted under C1 or C2 zoning districts, but are permitted under C3 zoning districts. This would allow such uses as electrical trade shops, heavy equipment sales, and services, HVAC contracting, and other similar and compatible uses. From staff's calculation, the parking for the particular use requested by the applicant will be at least 9 parking spaces. The property is currently a non-conforming lot, a legal non-conforming lot, and was also being used as a furniture store, which was a legal non-conforming use. A variance is running in concurrency with the request to allow the reduction of the minimum lot size, as well as a reduction to the minimum rear yard setback from 20 feet to 19 feet. From the assessment, we looked at what was the zoning around the areas. The subject property is surrounded by commercial zoning. There is also a precedence for a rezoning from C1 to C3. This is 200 feet south of the property on the corner of Highway 155, East Lake Road, which I will point right now. Also, the nearest residential property indicated in white to diagonally of the property is residential. Access to the site is from Highway 155 North. It is classified as a state arterial road. Highway 155 North is shown as in the Henry County CPT and in the Atlanta Regional Commission aspirations plans as a proposed future widening. So an additional 10 feet of right-of-way would need to be preserved in an area which would extend the right-of-way 60 feet from the center line of Highway 155. From staff's assessment, we are recommending approval based on the fact that we believe that we can mitigate any hazards or harm that can be produced by the property, as well as any additional conditions that the Zoning Advisory Board wishes to recommend. So staff recommends approval of rezoning request from C1 to C3 with the following 5 conditions. The future right-of-way of Highway 155 shall be preserved from the development of any future improvements, such as required parking spaces, new and replacing signage, fencing, extending an area of 60 feet from the center line of Highway 155 North. Any future development will be bound by front setback beginning at the future right-of-way. Second, applicant will coordinate with Georgia DOT and Henry County DOT with regards to the placement of any building-related improvements, parking, signage, fencing, gates that are presently located or will be located in the future with the existing and future within the existing and future right-of-way. A letter from Georgia DOT and Henry County DOT addressing these conditions shall be provided to Planning and Zoning Department before any business license may be approved or renewed. Third, the dumpsters shall be placed on a concrete pad and enclosed on 3 sides. The enclosure shall be constructed of brick, stone, stucco, or any combination thereof, provided it is consistent with the primary structure and shall not exceed 8 feet in height. Fourth, all requirements of the ULDC, including parking, outside storage, landscaping, etc., shall be met whether by ordinance or by variance. And fifth, notwithstanding anything to the contrary herein, no zoning conditions imposed here shall be interpreted or applied in such a manner so as to require any violation of any existing building, development, stormwater, and or any other applicable codes.
Any questions from staff? From the board to staff? No question. Will the applicant come forward, please? Will you state your name and address for the record?
Mark Logan, 2158 Highway 155 North, McDonough.
Do you have anything additional you would like to add to?
Yes.
Staff.
The C1 application or zoning, everybody labeled us as an HVAC contractor. We're as much the service of the community, which we have walk-in business. We have people stop in, buy our products just like any other retail store would. They come in, we have a showroom, they come in, they visibly see what they are going to buy, then we go and install it. I feel like we should fall under the C1 ordinance or zoning, but I understand we have to go to C3 because in C3 it says all HVAC has to be under C3. Okay? We have no problem meeting any of the criteria that the zoning board has laid out for us. We have made improvements to the property. We have taken down all the fences, all the gates, all the little ugly pegs that were there. We plan on doing additional landscaping. We've taken down all signage that was previously out by the road. We have no problem with the 10-foot that has to be reserved for the DOT at the rate the Georgia DOT widens roads in Henry County. I think these buildings will be gone by then. So we have no problem with any of the criteria they've set forth for us.
Okay. Does the board have any questions for the applicant? Okay.
I do. So, and I'm glad you clarified, basically, so you won't have any work trucks coming in and out, so you don't go to residents' houses and fix their HVAC, so you won't have any?
Yes, that's all electronically done. Now, do we get deliveries? Yes, we get deliveries just like any other commercial business would. We have to restock. We have to bring new products in. We have to restock our trucks, but that's on a minimal basis. We added all the additional parking places that has been required already. So
you wouldn't have a problem then with us putting a condition and adding an extra condition that says that you can do everything in a C1, which is what you wanted to do, that you felt like, and then we'll put a condition that the C3 is only for heavy consumer goods and services, which limits it just to the HVAC and what's in that category, which is what you want to do.
No, we have no problem whatsoever, okay. And we manufacture nothing on this premises.
Okay. That's all the questions that I have. Except for, is there ample parking now for what you need to do?
Yes, we've added, we have 11 spaces and one handicap, which they required 10 and one handicap.
So that's enough for folks to come in to buy whatever they need to buy?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And there's 2 entrances on the 155.
Okay.
Okay. Any additional questions? Okay, you may be seated, sir. At this time, we'd like to allow 10 minutes for those who would like to speak in favor of this case. 10 minutes for those that would like to speak in favor of this case. Since no one's coming forward.
You got somebody.
Speaking in favor, sir?
Yes, in favor, and I can explain quickly why in favor. Okay. My wife, Mary, who is in the room, and I'm Robert Morrison, and we own the property that is on either side of the heating air business. We're aware of his previous 2 locations. We've done business with him. We are in favor of the type business as well as being on either side of him. We've not had any reason to be curious about what he does because he's been in Henry County area for years in this same business. He keeps his trucks in good order. He keeps everything in as good a business condition as us as neighbors could expect. And so I would hardly say that I thought was okay under C1. But if he's not okay under C1, then I say we should make it so that he is fully legal where he wants to be. He is not in any way making noise. He's not in any way with bright lights. And so at this point, Mary and I see no reason that we can't be good neighbors and proceed. Thank you.
Anyone else would like to speak in favor of this case?
Mr. Chairman, for the record, could you have the previous person come up and state his name and
Yes.
address for the record, please?
Sir, will you return and state your name and address for the record?
Yeah, my name is Robert Morrison, Morrison, and we own the location known as the 2140 location, and we own the location known as 2172, and we own the undeveloped land that is behind all three properties, as well as Shane's Barbecue. A lot of county employees come to Shane's Barbecue. I don't know about you, but Shane's Barbecue is on the corner.
Okay.
And behind him is a strip of land that comes out onto East Lake. At this point, it's undeveloped. It's an investment. So we don't have any problem with what Logan's Heating and Air is asking for.
Okay, thank you. And what's your address, sir?
Home address?
Yes.
Our home address would be 4500 Oglesby Bridge Road, and it is in Rockdale County. Our front yard's in Rockdale, our backyard is in Henry.
Okay.
What city? What city?
And
What city is that, sir?
McDonough.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. All right. Again, is there anyone else who would like to speak in favor of this case? At this time, we'd like to allot 10 minutes for anyone that would like to speak in opposition of this case. Ten minutes for anyone that would like to speak in opposition. Okay. At this time, will the applicant return? Does the board have any further questions for the applicant? Go ahead, Mr. Apple.
I actually have a question for the staff, maybe. There was a recommendation to go with the C1 with some conditions versus the C3. What is the recommendation on that?
Can you repeat the question?
Well, the chairman made a recommendation, possibly, or a question about C1 with conditions, leaving it as it may be, or going to the C3. So what is the recommendation based on that?
I believe you cannot zone it, leave it as a C3, and then just add a use that's allowed. But what I believe Ms. Consello had said was rezone it to C3 with only heavy commercial being permitted, and none of the other C3 or C2 that may. So basically, everything that's allowed in C1 plus heavy commercial. But it would be rezoned as C3.
All right. Okay, I'm good with that.
Do we have any additional questions for the applicant? You may be seated, sir. At this time, we'd like to call the case.
Case number RZ-15-10. LHAC Comfort Solutions of McDonough, Georgia requests a rezoning from C1 Neighborhood Commercial to C3 Highway Commercial for the property located at 2158 Highway 155 in Land Lot 6 of the 7th District. The property consists of 0.720 plus or minus acres, and the request is for a commercial business. Property is in Commission District 4.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to approve RZ 1510 with the 5 conditions recommended by staff, with one additional condition that we limit it to all C1 zoning and limit the C3 use to heavy consumer goods and services.
Okay. We have a motion. Any discussion? We have a second?
Second.
Okay. We have a second. Any discussion? All in favor? Motion carries. Okay. I'd like to call a case. We move on to case BR 1506. Call a case, please.
Case VR-15-06, LHAC Comfort Solutions of McDonough, Georgia, requests a variance from development regulations for property located at 2158 Highway 155 North in Land Lot 6 of the 7th District. The property consists of 0.720 plus or minus acres, and the request is for a reduction in the minimum lot size and the minimum rear yard setback. The property is located in Commission District 4 and is presented by Ms. Josephine Medina.
To reduce the minimum lot area requirement from 32,670 square feet to 31,370 square feet, as well as the reduction of the rear yard setback from 20 feet to 19 feet. Section 11.01.04D states a nonconforming use of a structure or structure and land in combination that is discontinued or abandoned for 6 consecutive months, except when government action impedes access to the premises, shall not be resumed. The structure or land and land in combination shall therefore be used except in conformity with the regulations of zoning district in which it is located. Once the use of the property as a furniture store was discontinued for more than 6 months, then the commercial use cannot be used without this continued without the approval of this variance. Therefore, the variance is required for any legal use of the land. If I can direct you to the site plan in front. That shows where the warehouse is encroaching on 1 foot of the 20-foot rear yard setback. The applicant is requesting for this to be reduced in order to satisfy the rear yard setback from 20 to 19 feet. There is also a minimum lot area requirement for any commercial district, whether it's C1, C2, or C3, which requires 32,670 square feet for any property that is not on sewage. The property is currently 31,370 feet. In addition to this, the access to the property is through Highway 155 North, which is in the Henry County CTP and in the Atlanta Regional Commission's aspirations plan as a proposed future widening from the center of Highway 155 North, 60 feet from the center line of Highway 155 North. So any future building improvements or building replacements will be bound by front setbacks beginning at the future right-of-way. Because the property requires a variance in order for any legal use to be done by the owner, the staff is recommending approval of the requested variance with the following 5 conditions. 1, for the rear yard setback reduction from 20 feet to 19 feet to be only applicable to existing legal non-conforming structures on site. 2, for any new structure constructed on site to meet the setback standards outlined in the ULDC. And 3, in order to accommodate future changes, the future right-of-way of Highway 155 North will be preserved from the development of any future improvements, such as required parking spaces, new replacement signage, fencing, etc., in an area extending 60 feet from the center line of Highway 155. Any future development will be bound by the front setback beginning at the future right-of-way line. 4, the applicant shall coordinate with Georgia DOT and Henry County DOT with regards to the placement of any non-building related improvements, parking, signage, fencing, etc., that are presently located or will be located in the future within the existing and future right-of-way. The estimated area of future right-of-way will further reduce the area of the subject property by approximately 1,585 square feet. Therefore, the minimum lot area shall be reduced from 32,670 square feet to 29,785 square feet. Notwithstanding anything to the contrary herein, no zoning conditions imposed herein shall be interpreted or applied in such a manner so as to require any violation of the existing building development, stormwater, or any other applicable codes.
Okay. Does the board have any questions for staff? Okay, thank you. Will the applicant come forward? State your name and address again for the record, sir.
Mark Logan, 2158 Highway 155 North, McDonough.
All right, do you have anything additional you would like to add to this again?
No, the main reason for the variance on the setback is when this building was built in 1999, whoever laid it out and inspected it, this corner, the southwest corner, is in compliance. The northwest corner is not in compliance. It's a foot out. So the building just wasn't squared to the property line is the reason for that variance, that part of the variance. That was an existing, we didn't catch when we purchased the property. The minimum lot size goes back to the zoning. The setback, Mr. Morrison's already spoken, the previous zoning, they have no problem with the 1 foot that we're encroaching on them. We have no intentions nor plans to develop the property any further than it's already developed. It's too small to do anything with.
Does staff have any additional questions for the applicant?
No. What's that, the staff, what's that shaded area that he says that he's within the 1 foot encroachment? Is that somebody else's property, or is that?
No, this over here?
What is that?
That is retention pond.
Oh, so you're encroaching on the retention pond?
No, this is we're encroaching on the back property line
the back,
here
okay,
from
okay.
this corner of the building. That's
but-
just a shaded area that shows the retention
Right,
pond.
okay. That's, so it's just that 1 foot area?
Yes.
Okay.
It's 1 foot on the corner and it tapers all the way down to 0.
Okay. That's all I needed to know. I didn't know what that other area was, and I
Yes.
thought maybe that was another piece of property or something. That's the pond.
Just
Okay.
retention pond.
Okay,
Okay,
I'm good.
good. Any additional questions from the board? No questions? You may be seated, sir. At this time, we'd like to allot 10 minutes for those that would like to speak in favor of the variance. State your name and
Robert
address.
Larson, and we, as I mentioned earlier, we have the property that makes a horseshoe around.
Name and address for the record again, sir.
Robert Morrison and my wife Mary is in the room, and we own the properties around what we're talking about, and we live at 4500 Oglesby Bridge Road, and that's a McDonough mailing address. Our backyard is Henry, our front yard is Rockdale.
Okay, thank you.
We have no problem whatsoever. This big contiguous piece of land was owned by one family when all those roads were dirt. And there was a service station where Shane's is that had one kerosene pump and one gas pump. And the people that originally owned it are our neighbors. They live between Shane's and going to the elementary school. Land was cheap at that time. Maybe the surveyor didn't want to get in too many briars. We do not know. But the building is cattywampus with the highway, railroad, anything else around there. But Mary and I are very aware of it. We have no problem with its current use. We have no need for that foot of dirt. We got no need. The fence doesn't need moved. It's just one of these things that got done before some of these growing pains. I recommend that you approve exactly what this young lady has explained, and that Logan's Heating and Air has no problem with the people in the backyard.
Okay, thank you, sir. Anyone else would like to speak in favor of this case? At this time, we'd like to allot 10 minutes for those that would like to speak in opposition of this case. Okay, at this time, will the applicant come back forward, please? Does the board have any additional questions for the applicant? You may be seated, sir. I'd like to call the case.
Case number VR-15-06, LHAC Comfort Solutions of McDonough, Georgia, requests a variance from development regulations for property located at 2158 Highway 155 North in Land Lot 6 of the 7th District. The property consists of 0.720 plus or minus acres, and the request is for a reduction in the minimum lot size and the minimum rear yard setback. The property is located in Commission District 4.
We have the case. Do we have a motion?
I'd like to make a motion that we approve VR-15-06 with the 5 conditions set forth by staff.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, show your hand. Motion carries.
Call the next case, please.
Case number VR-15-04, Pacific Land of Atlanta, Georgia, requests a variance from development regulations for several lots located within the Hickory Hills subdivision and land lots 75 and 86 of the 7th District. The properties consist of 31.123 plus or minus acres, and the request is to allow the development of single-family residences. The property is located in Commission District 4 and is District 3, and is presented by Josephine Medina.
The request is for variance from development regulations to allow the construction of single-family homes. The requested variants are as follows. 1, to reduce the minimum side yard setback requirements from 15 feet to 10 feet while maintaining a minimum 30 feet between structures. 2, to reduce the minimum side yard setback on 4 corner lots from 30 feet to 25 feet. Number 3, to reduce the front yard setback requirements on 8 lots from 40 feet to 30 feet. And number 4, to reduce the front yard setback requirements on 2 lots from 40 feet to 35 feet. From staff assessment, there are no extraordinary or exceptional conditions pertaining to the subject properties due to their size, shape, or topography that are not applicable to other lands or structures in R3 single-family residence zoning district or within Hickory Hills subdivision Phase 1 or Phase 2. As maybe you can't see it as well, the map, that's an aerial of the area. It shows that there are various other lots that have been developed and have not required any variance that did not go past administrative variance, which is allowing a 10% reduction of side, front, or rear yard setbacks. From what staff's assessment is, we did find that there were 4 lots within the 25-foot wetland buffer area that would be hindered in the amount of usable backyard and those were for lots 29, 30, 31, and 35, as I will put up the final plat in order for you to identify them. Staff has outlined in red the 4 lots, and as you can see, the wetland buffer pretty much encroaches on what can be any usable backyard for these properties. The reason we are recommending denial of the requested variances for all but these 4 lots, and this is due mainly to our consideration of it being injurious to neighbors or to the general public due to the reduction in air, light, and privacy, and we don't see any hardship being experienced by any of the other properties. Staff recommends approval of the following variants to lots who are mostly affected by the 25 feet wetland buffer, and where the ability to provide a usable backyard for a single-family resident is considered to be denied or hindered. So we are recommending approval to reduce the front yard setback on 4 lots, lots 29, 30, 31, and 35, from 40 feet to 30 feet.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any questions from the board members for staff?
I just have one
Mr.
question. Based on that reduction, that would shift the building actually forward?
That's correct.
Okay, and allowing additional space in that wetland, away from the wetland?
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Any other board members have any questions for staff? If not, I would like to call the applicant to please come forward. Please state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, Madam Chairman, members of the board. My name is Ted Turner. I'm with Century Communities, 41 Perimeter Center East, Dunwoody, Georgia. I'll try to be brief tonight and address the 3 different variances that we are requesting. Yes, ma'am. Thank you. With regard to the reducing the side setbacks from 15 to 10 feet while maintaining 30 feet between structures, it is our desire to build a 60-foot wide product with a side entry garage on these lots. The lots are currently 100 feet wide, and if I may, I'm going to put an exhibit up, and I believe you all were provided with a copy of this. So if you can see from the exhibit that our lots are 100 feet wide, and you basically need 30 feet from the side property line to the edge of the house for a side entry garage or side entry driveway. Our houses are 60 feet wide, so that basically leaves 10 feet on the opposite side of the house, from the opposite side of the house to the side property line. So the 5-foot variance allows us to accomplish the side entry garage with this 60-foot product, while still maintaining at least 30 feet between structures as required by zoning. As you can see from the exhibit, we're able to accomplish 42 feet between structures, 59, 40, so it'll still leave plenty of room between structures. With regard to the second variance we're requesting to reduce the minimum side setback on 4 lots from 30 to 25 feet, this next exhibit shows an example of that, where, again, to build the 60-foot product and trying to build side entry garage on all of them, it allows us 5 more feet to be able to accomplish that. And then finally, with regard to the front setback variances we're requiring of the back of the community that back up to the 25-foot wetland buffer. We're seeking the reduction of the front setback primarily for the 4 lots that staff is recommending approval. The reason why we're asking for the variance for the other ones is so that we're basically trying to feather out the front of the houses, and so that you can even out the streetscape, so that you're not riding down the street and all of a sudden there's a house, there's 4 houses pulled 10 feet forward. So this will allow them to taper in and then taper back out. And that's all I have. I'd be happy to answer any questions. I guess I can do that later. So.
Do the board members have any questions for the applicant at this time? Mr. Risher.
Sir, do you build any homes that have front entry garage?
Yes, we do.
Any other questions? Okay, any other questions from board members to staff, up to the applicant? Mr. Alexander?
The entire purpose of what you're doing, the total home count will remain consistent. There's no on what we're doing here, what you're doing here, there will be no additional homes added.
No additional homes added, yes, sir. The lot count will remain the same.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Head?
Septic tanks, are they sewer?
These are on sewer.
Any other questions for the applicant? You may be seated.
Thank you, ma'am.
At this time, we're going to ask for those who want to speak in favor of the case. We'll give you 10 minutes total to speak in favor of the case. Please come forward, state your name and address for the record. Okay, I don't see anyone coming up, so we're going to allow 10 minutes for those who want to speak in opposition of the case. Come forward, state your name and address for the record. You have 10 minutes.
That's for everyone.
That's for everyone, yeah.
Good evening, board, and thank you for your time. My name is J.D. Harden. I live at 1025 Fanleaf Drive in McDonough, and I represent tonight a collective group of homeowners that are here with some concerns about the variance that's been placed before you. At this time, I would ask that all of the neighbors from this subdivision please either stand behind me just to be recognized, and you can sit back down, or raise your hand. Thank you, guys. First off, I'd like to thank you guys once again for your time, and I'd like to thank the staff for their due diligence and what they presented here to the board tonight with regards to the variances. We're here tonight due to, again, the variances that are placed before you. You know, we had one meeting with the builder, the applicant, and we learned of their request for the variances at that time in our neighborhood. Now, let me make very clear that we are not in opposition to Century Communities, which Mr. Turner, that just got up here and spoke, represents. We're not in opposition to them at all. We very much want to work with them to protect our most precious asset, which is our homes. Our neighborhood, if you've driven through there, which I believe some of you have, if you look at the information that's been shown, which is much more information than we've been given about these variances, as far as the diagram is concerned, none of our houses are boxes like that. And if you drive all throughout the county right now, there's ample product like that. So we are a little bit concerned that this is coming into a neighborhood that's full of large, custom-built homes that carry a very hefty tax digest for the county. So there is some concern right there. But when we had this meeting with them, there wasn't much explanation given as to what these variances were needed for, other than it's for the look of their product. It's for the look of their product. Well, believe you me, we're very concerned about the look of their product, because the look of our product is not anything near what theirs looks like. Again, we're a very custom-built home community. So with that, you know, in talking about their appearance, and also this would be subdivision number 10 in Henry County. They already have 40 subdivisions in Georgia, so this is 25% of their catalog right here in Henry County. So again, we've seen ample examples of what they can build, but we also know that they build out in other communities, and we know that they have a very similar product to what is ours, but they've told us that's not their plans for our neighborhood. So again, back to the concern about the look that they have and pushing forward, they've kind of indicated that they're going to move forward with this. And so what we're trying to do is just work with them and gain a rapport with them to make sure that what they provide in our neighborhood is as nice as possible. It's as close to our neighborhood look as possible. So surely in all the questions that we've asked them and requested of them, they would have been able to give at least that, which they haven't been able to give us yet. And we've asked for a month for that information. I'm glad we finally got it. Unfortunately, it's in a venue such as this tonight. We've continued to ask for requests from them. We've had requests of them to provide us that information, and we haven't gotten it until tonight. So, in trying to gain a better understanding of what their plan is for our neighborhood and how it's going to affect the 20 people that are already in there whose home values are on the rise, we respectfully ask that you guys deny their request tonight, so as we can gain more time to enter into discussions with them and possibly come back into this venue in a different time and approve or provide support for their variance request. So with that, I'll yield the rest of my time to anybody else that might have any things they'd like to share.
Please state your name and address for the record.
Okay. My name is Gregory Charles. I live at 144 Shellbark Drive. I live in the Hickory Hill subdivision. Myself and my wife, Talicia, both live there. Just want to kind of hit on what J.D. just mentioned. J.D., Dana Birch, and myself, we're actually members of the advisory board. And what we're supposed to do is communicate, with the builder who's coming in, Pacific Group, and we're supposed to give information back to the neighborhood on what's going on. So similar to what J.D. said, we just haven't gotten a lot of information, went through a meeting. We got limited information. We did get an elevation. We've asked detailed questions, which we've not gotten any response to as well. So our biggest concern that we hear from the neighborhood is what's going to be built. What is it going to look like? Are we going to lose our home values? What's going to go on? So basically what we're trying to do, like J.D. said, we're trying to really work with the builder just to understand exactly what they want to do. The styles in our neighborhood, you have craftsman style, you have some Dutch colonial, a little English Tudor in there as well. So the new 60-foot product, which you saw a floor plan of, or at least a site layout for, we've seen that, and we got that probably about 8 days ago, and we did ask some detailed questions on that and the price points. So I know that everything's rolling along. We do understand that they're in a business. They did mention that they are in a business to make money, and we get that. If you own a business, you got to make money, else why would you be doing it, right? But we think that there's a balance that can be reached between making money and not coming in there and just decimating our home values at this point. So we think that's extremely important. And like I said, we really tried to work in due diligence. And one of the things that we also see, and my wife and myself last year, we actually put our home on the market. And the reason we did it, we've just gone downsize. My stepdaughter was living with us, my granddaughter. When they moved out, we're like, okay, it's a lot of house. So we looked for months. And what we found out, we were kind of disenchanted with what was being built. And I have to tell you, we went to a couple of Century community properties that we just were not happy with what we saw. So we pulled it off the market and we stayed where we were. And of course, this is before the plans with Century came to fruition this year. Similar to what was just spoken about, there's 10 properties in McDonough or Henry County, and there's 3 within about 7 miles of us actually. And we think that there's a possibility. They want to start the homes. They told us the high 200s is what was said. There's a sign out front that got changed. The day of the meeting, it was put up and it was high 200s, and later on, they did agree to change that sign and put from the low 300s. Now, if you look at the prices in our neighborhood right now, based on valuation approximate, you're going to find that some of those get in the high 400s right now. So we're very concerned about what's going to go on. So at this point, we just think we need a little bit more time to understand it. We'd like to get more details. And with Mr. Turner, we really want to work with him, but we really got to see more information because the neighborhood behind us here is asking us questions. We really can't answer it. So I'm going to yield my time now to anybody else that wants to come up. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else would like to come up?
We have 2 minutes, 30 seconds.
Okay. So if no one else is coming up, I would like the applicant to please come forward. Upon hearing from the public, I would like to see if any of the board members have any other questions for the applicant. And I see Mr. Alexander with his hand up.
Yes, sir. I was listen at the residents and what their concerns were. Basically, there appear to be the quality of the product, and there appear to be a lack of communication, whatever reason that might be. Would you respond to the quality issue, which is probably related to the price point and protection of their property values, and those concerns?
Yes, sir. So as they pointed out, we did meet with them a few weeks ago and listened to their concerns, and it was primarily about product. We talked to them about these variances that we were seeking and this new 60-foot product that we are designing specifically for this subdivision. One plan came out, as they said, 8 days ago. It's still in design. We haven't finished all of our elevations yet. They are concerned about the architecture, if it's going to be craftsman to match what's there. We are trying to work with them. Our product is not finalized yet, and again, I would just like to reiterate that this isn't about product tonight. This is about variances, front and side setback variances. We fully intend to comply with the zoning conditions that require, I believe, 2 types of masonry materials on all sides of the buildings, and I think there's some other conditions. So, again, to answer the other part of your question, that we're trying to build this is a product that we've never built. It's the biggest product that we'll have in our lineup, and we're going to charge as much as the market will pay for it. So yes, we're advertising from the low 3s, and we hope on a basement they go into the 4s, but only the market will tell us, what they're willing to pay for these houses. I hope that answers your question, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Risher.
Yes, sir. I asked a while ago if you have a product that has front entry garages, and the reason I asked that is that I drove extensively through this neighborhood, and I noticed that there were several homes that really were just as fine a quality as all the others, and some of those had the front entry garages. All the homes in that area have very much of a different footprint from each other. Some even have garages that go off at an angle, from the front. It's just they just vary according to the lot, I suppose. But I did not see that there was any difficulty in placing homes with side entry garages on any of those lots, that I saw. And I think there's some 22 existing homes, I guess, that are occupied for the most part. There's, I think, 85 total lots. 38 are, being asked for variances, which, 4 certainly would seem, justifiable for consideration based on the wetlands, but you're asking for, 38 lots total out of the 63 that remain. So that's really more than half the remaining lots, which is an awful lot. And I think that you said in this letter that that you were trying to do this because of the product that you have. Well, I think the business of this board is to consider hardships that are related to some physical situation with the properties, and not necessarily what someone wants to put in on these lots, because I think that there is adequate buildable area from the setbacks for almost any kind of home. So it just seems like that this is an awful big request.
May I respond to that, sir?
Yes, sir.
The reason why we want to do the side entries is that side entries have a higher perceived value. They command a higher price point, which is, I understand there are front entry garages and there are side entries existing in the community too. The side entry garages are more consistent with this higher end product. That's why we can certainly build front entry on every lot. Our product does that, so.
Mr. Nelson.
I just have one question. Now, do you perceive any hardship at all in terms of building front entrance?
Can you say the question again, please, sir?
Do you perceive any hardship in terms of building the front entrance?
No, sir.
Okay. So there's no hardship on your part in
No,
terms
sir.
of building the front entrance? Okay.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Actually, there's several questions. Do you know what the lot sizes are? And I think Mr. Risher said there was 22 existing homes, those residents that are here tonight. Are their lot sizes the 100?
They're 100.
They're also 100?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so I'm trying to grasp why theirs are conforming to variances and these houses would not. Now, I know what your explanation is for the ones in the wetlands, and you said you wanted everything
Yes,
to
ma'am.
kind of be symmetrical. But I'm kind of a symmetrical person too, so and I know that you can, adjust things, like a pyramid or something so forth. So they don't all have to be in a straight line. I mean, I understand what you told us here. I'm talking about the last page. I think to me, for all of them to be straight across like that is not that appealing. Now, I'm with you on the side garages, but with that, I think that you could maybe skip a lot size and then make your lots a little bit bigger to accommodate what you want. I mean, there's the hardship. There's no so what we're saying is we don't see in hardship. So what I'm seeing is you just want to put all those homes in there with these side garages, and you can't put the side garages. And I'm with you with the side garages because they are perceived to be a better home value, which is a good thing. I just think the lots maybe need to be a little bit bigger, maybe 5 or 10 feet on the side, just to accommodate that value and what you want. That's just me commenting to you. So why couldn't those things be done? And I looked at everything, and I'm with you. I know a little bit about home building, enough to probably make me dangerous, probably not as much as you do.
Yes, ma'am.
But I know what I see and I know what I know, and sometimes 2 and 2 is not equaling up here, so.
So my response to that is, and I haven't measured the existing homes in the neighborhood, but those that have side entries most likely are not wider than 50 feet. We have a 50-foot wide product that we can and that we actually are building in the neighborhood right now in the back until the 60-foot wide product is available. So the alternative is for us to do a 50-foot wide product with the side entry that fits on most of the lots all day long.
So are their houses 60 foot, or you say you didn't know?
I would have to believe that most of their houses that have a side entry are 50. They would have to be. Just doing the math that you see in the drawing that's on the screen. They have to be 10 foot narrower.
Well, what about the ones where you've got these houses, which there's not really a hardship except for the 4 that are on the
corner lots?
The one that are in the wetlands area. Then you've got all the other ones kind of lined up in a row there. I mean, don't you think that would be a little bit? I mean, can't you be a little? I don't know.
We could go with some lesser variances on the ones aside the ones that don't back up to the wetlands. We were just trying to, that would give us the ability to stagger them in. You have, you can start at 5 and then go to 7 and then to 10, and then you go back out again.
I can just tell you, in the subdivision I live in, our house sits way back. The house that's next door it's up. I mean, our houses do like this all the time. So I mean, especially if they're custom homes, they do that. So I don't see any problem with that.
It's just a better look. That's all.
Okay.
At least that's from our perception.
Right. Okay.
Yes,
that's all I had.
Okay.
Mr. Risher.
Yes, I have a question for the staff. On the front setback line, I believe that our regulations allow the stairs and porches to project. I believe it's at least 5 feet beyond the setback line. Is that correct? And then secondly, I know at one time that there was a requirement that the driveway parking areas in the driveway, there had to be a separation of several feet. I believe it was either 6 or 12 feet. I don't remember, but if this drawing is correct, you've got these parking pads jammed right up together, and I don't think that even conforms to regulations on lots 67 and 66. But do these homes have to be all 60 feet? I mean, can some be 50 or 55 or so?
Certainly. We have a product, like I say, we're already building in here. We already have pulled, I think, 8 permits with our 50-foot wide product in the back.
I mean, I think that would probably solve the side setback problem if you just went to a more narrow house in some situations.
It does, but it's a smaller house and it'll be valued less. It won't sell for as much.
Is that something that you've spoken with the homeowners as far as, getting their input on the smaller homes, side garages versus, because I would think if it was a smaller home with a side garage, I'm not telling you how to build your houses, but just in concept here, we're trying to get the grasp of it, to help accommodate smaller home with a side garage. Wouldn't a smaller home with a side garage kind of raise the value up a little bit? I mean...
we had that discussion at that meeting, but we feel it's the opposite.
Okay, I mean, that's a question I
Yes, ma'am.
have to ask, and I'm just kind of thinking out
Sure.
loud here. Okay, anyone else have any questions for the applicant? Mr. Head?
They made a statement that they was willing to work with you. And, this is their neighborhood. This is where they live. And I feel like we've had builders that come in here before, and they was willing to sit down with the homeowners. And I feel like that should be done, because this is where they have to live. And I don't see why that would, because this is their neighborhood. And I just feel like that somehow there ought to be some kind of common ground with them. They said when they came up, said they didn't have a problem. They didn't have a problem. They wasn't against it, but they just wanted to have an input in what their neighborhood looked like.
Yes, sir.
Anyone else have any questions for the applicant? If not, you may be seated. Thank you so very
Thank you,
much. Okay, can we call the case?
Case number VR-15-04, Pacific Land of Atlanta, Georgia requests a variance from development regulations for several lots located within the Hickory Hill subdivision and land lots 75 and 86 of the 7th District. The properties consist of 31.123 plus or minus acres, and the request is to allow the development of single-family residences. The property is located in Commission District 3.
Okay, do we have a motion for this case? Mr. Risher.
Yes, I make a motion to deny the variance request with 4 exceptions, and that applies to lots 29, 30, 31, and 35, to alter the front building line 10 feet from 40 feet to no more than 30 feet. The basis for that is the hardship created by the wetland boundary to allow future homeowners to have a more usable rear yard. So that's my motion.
I have a motion by Mr. Risher. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second by Mr. Babb. Any discussion? All those in favor of Mr. Risher's motion, please indicate by raising your hand. Okay. Motion carried. Okay, next case.
Case number CU-15-08-S, Chu, Z.R. Chow, and Lee Kwan, Mark X of Stockbridge, Georgia, request a conditional use for property located at 1961 Highway 42 North and land lot 34 of the 7th District. The property consists of 0.04 plus or minus acres, and the request is for a church in the C2 General Commercial Zoning District. The property is located in the city of Stockbridge and is presented by Mr. Stacy Jordan.
Good evening, Madam Chair. Good evening, Board. The property before you tonight is Unit 1961, Highway 42 North, and it's very difficult to see, but it's hiding behind the R right there in the overhead. The property is a single unit within the Eagle East Commercial Shopping Center, and the request is for a church expansion for Trinity Chapel South, which currently occupies units 1951 through 1959. The applicant is the owner of the condominium unit number 1961, Highway 42 North. There's an associated variance that will be moving forward to the Stockbridge City Council, which will encompass the entire common area because the variance is regarding parking, among other requests such as buffering and the setback requirements for churches. And let me just state at this time that this conditional use, since it's within the city of Stockbridge, is for your recommendation, and this conditional use will move forward to the Stockbridge City Council for the final determination. So the unit itself is a 1,680 square foot plus or minus area. It's the shopping center is comprised of 11 units, and they are all the same size, as I understand. So this shopping center is approximately 18,480 square feet. The history of the site is that it was zoned C2 back on August the 9th of 2004, as is listed in the zoning history of the staff report, which is in your exhibit books, with one condition, that there be no outside storage. On July the 13th, 2009, the Stockbridge City Council approved a temporary 6-month special permit conditional use to allow a religious facility for units 1951 through 1959 with 3 conditions. And the 3 conditions are that all building, fire, and accessibility codes shall be met. Number 2, the applicant shall obtain approval of the variance request at the time, which was for buffering and setbacks. And number 3, notwithstanding anything to the contrary herein, no zoning conditions imposed herein shall be interpreted or applied in such a manner so as to require any violation of any existing building, development, stormwater, or any other applicable codes. The variance request at the time was approved by the Stockbridge City Council to reduce the required planted buffer from 20 feet to 0 feet because it's unit specific. And as you can imagine, the unit goes right to the property line of the condominium unit. Also, the variance was approved to reduce the setback requirement from 50 feet to 0 feet for the same reason. The question of parking spaces was not addressed because the applicant at the time stated that there was room to install additional parking. However, that additional parking has not been installed, and the applicant today simply wishes to receive a variance, which again will be going before the Stockbridge City Council on the same date as the conditional use. This year, a letter dated April the 8th, 2015 from the City of Stockbridge states that the applicant received a temporary special permit approval to use Unit 1961 as a religious facility with 3 conditions. Number 1, all permits and approvals required for development by the Henry County Building and Plan Review must be obtained prior to final certificate of occupancy. Number 2, all applicable building, fire, and accessibility codes for assembly use are met. And number 3, a completed application for conditional use must be submitted to Henry County Planning and Zoning for consideration by the Stockbridge City Council by June the 15th, at which time there is a decision on the application. A temporary use of the subject property location shall proceed according to the resolution of the City Council. Let me state at this time, as noted in your staff report, Stockbridge Ordinance Number 03-76 amends the city code And this is the section of the city code that was adopted from the county's old code by reference, section 3-7-153C2 general commercial, to allow as a conditional use an additional, number 9, churches, synagogues, chapels, and other places of religious worship or educational instruction, unless the city has specifically found health or safety issues which advise against such a conditional use. The staff has evaluated the request according to section 3-7-292 application procedure for conditional use with the 5 criteria points. We didn't find that there were any issues with health and safety issues which would advise against such a conditional use. So therefore, the staff has recommended approval of the applicant's request with 2 conditions. Number 1, that the applicant shall receive approval of their variance request, and that's case number VR-09-05-S. And number 2, notwithstanding anything to the contrary herein, no zoning conditions imposed herein shall be interpreted or applied in such a manner so as to require any violation of any existing building, development, stormwater, or any other applicable codes.
Okay, thank you. At this time, do we have any questions from the board to staff? Mr. Alexander.
Yes, Stacy. I want you to go over one more time so I completely understand the ordinance that we mentioned about the storefront worship. Could you kind of go over that and understand how does that? There was a waiver taken on that or something to that effect.
And let me understand exactly what you mean. Are you referring to the ordinance that I mentioned, which allows the Stockbridge City Council to consider conditional uses in the C2 zoning district? Or were you referring specifically to shopping centers? I just want to make sure I understand.
The shopping centers, yeah.
Okay. The ordinance that was adopted, and this was adopted and signed by the mayor on September the 8th of 2003. It allows the city council to consider conditional use requests for churches in the C1, the C2, and the C3 zoning districts. It does not specifically treat the idea of having churches in shopping centers and so forth, but it doesn't prohibit it either. So because the location is zoned commercial, we'll stand on this code as it was adopted to evaluate the request.
Mr. Alexander, did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, any other questions for staff? Okay, will the applicant please come forward? State your name and address for the record.
I'm Gary Anderson. I live at 6125 Montlake Avenue in McDonough. I'd like to thank the Planning and Zoning Board for their hard work and approval on what we have requesting here. We're requesting a conditional use for the property at 1961 Highway 42 North. If you look in your file, it wasn't a requirement, but we got letters from the other 4 owners in that strip center, and that they did not have any objection to the conditional use for the church. In reference to the parking, I know we're probably not considering that now, but if you look at the numbers listed, Anderson.
Mr. Anderson? Okay, so I don't have that as the applicant on my sheet. Are you representing the applicant?
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, I just wanted to make sure I knew.
Yes, ma'am. And let me just say that as we went through this process, we did receive documentation that Mr. Anderson was allowed to speak on behalf of the applicant.
Okay, because that's not in our book. So, Dante, that's something we can allow. I mean, tell me what the protocol is on that.
If there should be a letter included in your packet expressing that. If not, then Stacy.
Yes, and we
it
can put
to
our
you.
hands on that.
Yeah, it's, it's not in our book. Okay, that's okay. I just want to make sure that. Didn't mean to interrupt you, but then I was looking and I didn't see your name, and I just want to make sure I knew who was addressing the board.
I understand. I appreciate that. Under the executive summary in reference to the spaces for parking, I think we probably have to bring this up with the city. We did apply for that variance through the county. They're saying 93 spaces in the original and only had 73. We did a physical count on the property there, and we have 97 striped places plus an overflow area. But the church currently has 2 services, so it's not a parking issue by any means.
Okay. Any board members have any questions for the applicant? Mr. Alexander?
Yes, sir. With the previous request, there was no additional parking added, and at this point, you're asking for an expansion. Based on that expansion, how many? Do you have any idea how many members you have coming now? And then with the expansion, how many members will be coming?
I don't have a physical count on the number that come now. I know that this particular unit, 1961, is just for an adult classroom and for some storage on the backside. So it doesn't really affect the total number. They were trying to separate the adult classroom from the main sanctuary where, as far as noise and so forth, and they needed the storage area for tables and in the back half of this 1961.
With the growth of the church, is there any anticipated point where you would maybe acquire a standalone facility, or is there some point where you get there?
Yes, they're currently looking now either for a building or land, and it really depends on that search and what we could find.
Thank you.
So, and I just want to make sure that I understand it. So basically, you're trying to acquire the space, not because you're overflowing and overgrowing. You have 2 services, that's accommodating that. You just need it for a classroom and for some storage.
Exactly.
Because there's no entrance from what exists now to that building. It's a separate entrance altogether. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And you're not going to be knocking out any walls or anything?
No, there won't be any connection.
Okay. Anyone else have any questions for the applicant? You may be seated. At this time, we're going to call for those who want to speak in favor of the case. If you would like to speak in favor, please come forward. Do we have anybody who wants to speak in opposition of it? Okay, Mr. Anderson, you can come back up. Do any of the board members have any additional questions or anything? Mr. Nelson?
Ms. Anderson, I do have a question in terms of parking. Now, are you indicating that you have adequate parking as of this point?
Yes, we do.
Okay. And if you expand with the classrooms, will that affect your parking at all?
That doesn't affect the overall number at all.
Okay. That's all I have.
Anyone else have any questions? You may be seated. Thank you. You can call the case.
Case number CU-15-08-S, Chu Z.R. Chow and Lee Kwan Mark X of Stockbridge, Georgia, request a conditional use for property located at 1961 Highway 42 North in Land Lot 34 of the 7th District. The property consists of 0.04 plus or minus acres, and the request is for a church in the C2 General Commercial Zoning District. The property is located in the city of Stockbridge.
Do we have a motion for this case?
Yes, we have a motion to approve CU 1508S with the 2 conditions enumerated by staff.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a second? Mr. Head, any discussion? Okay, all those in favor of this motion, please indicate by raising your hand. Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Call the next case, please.
Case number CU-15-07, Medford R. Richer of Locust Grove, Georgia, requests a conditional use for property located at 898 LeGuin Mill Road in Land Lot 229 of the 2nd District. The property consists of 23.875 plus or minus acres, and the request is for an event facility, outdoor amusement in the RA Residential Agricultural Zoning District. The property is located in Commission District 1 and is presented by Tyler McSwain.
Good evening, Madam Chairman, board members.
Good evening.
The applicant is requesting a conditional use for the subject property located at 898 LeGuin Mill Road. The 23.875 give or take acre property is currently zoned RA for residential agricultural. The applicant wishes to utilize the subject property to host outdoor weddings and events. The applicant stated that to staff that at a later date they might add an additional accessory structure or a facility in conjunction with the events taking place on the subject property. There is a farm pond located near the southern region of the property, and the applicant has stated that a proposed building will likely be placed on the property as well. If you can point your attention to the map pointed on the screen, you will see that all of the abutting properties are also zoned RA as well, residential agricultural. And the map presented before you is reference from the tax assessor's map, which shows the farm pond, which is located on the southern region of the property. In our code, the ULEC states that functions including luncheons, banquets, parties, weddings, meetings, charitable fundraising, commercial or advertising activities, or other gatherings for direct or indirect compensation are permissible, but with the conditional uses required for the RA zoning district. The site meets the minimum site area requirements for lodges and event facilities, and it also meets the minimum lot width, outdoor lighting, which will be required if it is proposed. Drop-off and pick-off areas will be addressed when that situation comes up. The requested event facility may or may not negatively impact the surrounding property owners with the increased traffic and noise, depending on the type of events, which will be subject to the provisions of the Unified Land Development Code. With this information stated for you today, staff recommends approval with the 4 conditions before you. And I will entertain any questions you may have for me or staff at this time.
Okay, do any board members have any questions for staff? Nothing for staff? Okay. Would applicant please come forward? State your name and address for the record.
Hello. My name is Medford Randall Richter, and I live at 898 LeGuin Mill Road in Locust Grove.
Do you have anything you want to add to staff comments?
Pardon?
Was there anything you wanted to add in regards to staff comments?
Well, we have some pictures. If I could, at this time, I'd like to ask the board permission to have my son come up. Okay. And I know there's some discussion about traffic and so forth, and people just come up and stand with me until we get to that.
If he's going to be speaking, he'll need to state his name and address for the record also.
Right.
I'm Ira Richter. I live in Jackson, Georgia, and
what's your address in Jackson? I'm sorry.
476 Jackson Lake End Road. That's in Jackson, Georgia. There, Butts County. I was raised here, where we're talking about doing the weddings and things like that. I was going to show you some pictures. It's kind of hard to see. You know, sometimes you want a visual of what's going on. Is that kind of what I'm understanding? As what you were saying is kind of a visual. Y'all would like to know more about what we're doing, or
Well, they'll ask, the board will ask the question, so if they want to see pictures, I'll let that be the pleasure of the board.
Sounds
So if
good.
you'll just stay there, and as they ask questions, you can
Okay.
maybe answer that. And if they don't want to see pictures, then I'll leave that up to them.
Okay.
So any of the board members, if y'all don't have anything else, I'll ask them if they have any questions for you.
Okay.
Have any questions for the applicant? Mr. Head?
The noise. When you having these events, do you plan to, you live on the property?
Yes, sir, he lives on the property.
Okay. How long have you owned that property?
Since 1980?
1980.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And one of the concerns that I have is the hours. What hours do you anticipate? You know, when you say, is it 11 o'clock at night, 12?
No, sir. If we have an evening event, and basically what we're focusing on is outdoor weddings. And at 10 o'clock, I would want to close it down.
Okay, any other questions for the applicant?
I have a question. I
Mr.
would
Nelson.
like to see the pictures you have, and I'd like to find out exactly what you plan to build there on the property. What's the plan? What type of facility?
It's, what it's going to be is for like a reception hall.
Okay.
But it's going to be kind of a pole barn style, dressed up pole barn with a kitchen in the back.
And what size?
Around 2,000 square feet.
Okay. All right. And I would like to see those pictures if you have them, sir.
This is not an actual, this is kind of
Okay.
an idea of what we have.
Okay, that'd be fine.
Things like that, you know.
And the next question is, how do you plan to access that property, access that area? Do you plan to build an additional road, or do you plan to, what's the plan?
With your permission, I have my son to show you where we're going to enter the property and exit the property, and also for the parking.
This is a kind of a panoramic view. If you were coming from west to east on the Gwen Mill in front of the property, you would see this here. There on the right over here is the property line. All right, and then this would be the entrance right in here, where we would have an entrance. And then you would turn left and go to across this field here in the front is kind of where we were having the parking. You can see there's a light pole here, and then there's a driveway exit up here. So I want this to be one way in and one way out to come around. Does that make sense there, how we're going to do that? Just another quick shot of the field area, the entrance area there. This is further up the road, so you can kind of see there where you're coming down. You'll be going east on the Gwen Mill. It's another shot there where you would kind of be turning. That's if you were turning in. And this is a shot looking west from the exit of the property. You can see this will be, you will be coming and turning into the driveway, which is looking west also. There's the edge of the driveway as the exit. You can see that very well. That's the exit right here is the driveway exiting the property. And all the way down, let's see, here is the property line. Right in here will be the entrance. And this area across the front up here would be the parking area for people. This is where we would have a drop-off area or pick them up and carry them to a facility because we don't want people driving all over our place. This is where we live. You know, it's our home. So we want to make a parking area. And for people to, it's a wedding, it's an event. It's what we're kind of focusing on. People to get out, take a nice walk, come to the event. This is to the right. This will be to the east of the exit. A view east of the exit. Right there, coming out of the exit. So you can see very well from the top of that hill exiting the place. This is just a field to the left of the place. Now this here is the view of the pond from where we're going or thinking about building the facility, the wedding facility, reception hall, or whatever. That is facing out towards the west on the place. You can see there's bridges down there, and this area right in here is kind of where we're thinking of having the weddings. And then there's a large hill crossing over here that goes down towards the water. And over on this side, I'll show you a better view of it. These two go together. It's kind of hard to get them all in on.
And how far is that from any adjacent properties?
Okay. Adjacent properties. This property to the west of us, the wedding facilities will be down here. So it's probably, I would say, 75 yards from the property line to there, where the wedding event would take place. And then the actual reception area and things like that would be, this map is, let's see, the pond is there. And there's a little field there beside it, if I'm seeing correctly. No, I'm sorry, where's the pond at on that? You see it? Oh, the green spot, here's the pond. Okay, so yes, right in here would be where we're thinking about doing the reception area, right in this area right in here.
I have a question.
Yes,
now
ma'am.
that you got, so show me on this where your parking is going to be. On this map right here that we're looking at.
Our property,
Where is the parking?
parking on this map,
Yes.
right up here, across the front,
Okay.
right here. You would entrance about right here, where that area right in here, and then this would all be parking, and then you would exit here, as to have a.
Okay, so I'm just kind of walking through. So,
Right,
So they
right.
will come in, they will park, and you're anticipating them walking across the field down to the wedding reception, wedding area.
They would come in right here. There's like an umbrella of trees, like an
Uh-huh.
arch area from some old trees and oak trees and things. And then they would walk down. It's not that far really. It looks bigger than it really. It's not that. I would say probably 200, 300 yard walk maybe down to the reception area. Now, of course, we have full intentions of elderly or someone handicapped and things like that providing a means of being able to transport the people down there. That's what our intentions are there.
Where would, now, just, if I were getting married
Right.
and I was wanting to use your venue, I'm trying
Right.
to think.
Yes, ma'am.
So I'm a bride.
Yes,
What do
ma'am.
I do?
What do you do?
Yeah, I mean, is there a place to get dressed? Do you have a facility, for that? Or they drop them off there and the bride's going to walk in her wedding dress all the way down?
No, we're planning on that also.
I'm just,
Yeah,
I'm
right.
just-
Totally. We're
I mean,
planning
so
on
that
that
means you'll have to
also.
be building something for somebody to get dressed in, you know what I'm
The
saying?
building we have there.
Maybe I'm just thinking out loud too much, but. I mean, you got grooms and you got bridesmaids and people gonna have to get
Right.
dressed, they got high heel shoes on and, or not, and,
Exactly.
You know what,
I'm just, I go to weddings and, so. And there's also bands, at weddings, and so, like he
Right.
said, it's gonna be to 10 o'clock, and I understand, because you live there, but, and I think what the board's getting at, where is your house compared to the nearest neighbors? So is the neighbor closer, is their house closer to your facility, or is your house closer to that facility?
The home is right here.
Okay,
Right. Let's see. Yeah, right here, I believe is the home. Yes, there's
so if
the
I had a
home.
band in that barn, which is gonna be open, it's not gonna be closed, right?
Right, it'll
Of
have
course,
a
it's
roof
pole
and
barn.
a front, a roof in the front and the back, and then we'll have sides that we can let up and down. That's where our
Right.
intentions are.
So I'm gonna be able to hear the band out in the yard. So
Right.
where's your nearest neighbor that's gonna be able to hear that?
It would be this land tract right here. These two right here would be the nearest ones that could hear.
Okay,
There, those two.
okay, that's all my questions.
Okay.
Anybody else have anything?
When you say parking and road, is that paved? Is that going to be paved, unpaved?
At this time, we do not want to pave it because it will take away from the beauty of the place. Now, I have no problem with putting in somewhere for people when they turn in. You don't want to, someone sliding in, put an entrance so it's safe to come in and the exit is paved, but we're not expecting like a commercial business. You're not going to drive up to our place and come and park and just go wandering. You'll be there by invitation only, and whoever you invite will be there by invitation only. So, that's what we're looking at is just a nice area to park, a nice grassed area, and not asphalt or anything like that at this time.
The Unified Land Development Code requires that commercial uses have dust-free paved parking. So that will be a requirement per our code. So it couldn't be just parking on the grass. Because of the commercial use, paved, dust-free parking will be required per our code.
Is that part of the condition?
It's part of the ULDC, so it'll be required.
ULDC, but I'm saying is that
it doesn't have to be a condition.
it doesn't have to be it, so
it's
they would
development regulation.
So you understand you would have to comply with all the ULDC codes.
I'm sorry, repeat.
You are aware that you would have to apply, you would have to comply with all the codes for Henry County. And they just stated that as far as commercial use. So I just want you guys to know, the question that was asked about parking so you would have to provide parking as was said by the executive director in compliance with ULDC code.
Now, would this parking mean a paved parking area?
Yes. Dust-free paved parking per the code.
Could that be gravel?
No.
No, because that's dust. That's correct.
Dust-free.
Paved?
No, well, I was going to say because we're asking questions. So he's not presenting, we're asking questions.
I understand that, but I'd like to, I really just don't want to pave it because it'll take away from the beauty of the place. Is there?
You can state that to staff if you can.
Is there a way, to keep it, the integrity of the place, the beauty of it, without having to pave it? Is there a way we can do that? Because it would really, we're asphalting our pastures, kind of the way we feel. I'm not saying we won't, but we really strongly don't want to because of the integrity of it. I have no problem making a walk path or providing a service for people to move them to the area, but I really don't want to have a paved area there in the field. I want to keep it as natural as can be for a traditional southern wedding events place. That's kind of what we're looking for.
I can't answer that question because I don't know the answer to it, so I'm going to have to defer to those that are that know that answer, and that's going to be the staff.
Sure. Our code requires that commercial uses, and what you are looking to do is classified as a commercial use, that they have dust-free paved parking. As far as your question or concern about anywhere around it, no, sir. That doesn't constitute hardship. Just to say that you do not wish to pave. It's a requirement per the code, and there's just no way around that at this time. It's because of the commercial use. The commercial use is what triggers the paving requirement for parking.
Do any other board members have any questions for the applicant? Do you have anything else to present? Okay, I guess we can ask you to be seated. At this time, we're going to ask for those who want to speak in favor of the case to please come forward. We'll give you a combined 10 minutes to speak in favor of the case. Please state your name and address for the record.
I'm hard of hearing, so y'all help me out here.
I can't hear you. I'm sorry. Can you please speak up?
I said I'm hard of hearing, so y'all help me out here.
Well, I am too, and I can't hear you, so you're going to have to speak up.
Well, my name is Bartow Bevel. I live at 838 LeGuin Mill Road. There you go.
There you go.
And I live to the south, which is the most, you got a map there? I don't have a pen. This lot right here, which will be, it's probably the most, one of the most affected. And y'all are worried about noise. When that road was paved, them cars on that road make more noise, and it's the most ungodly wanting to hear noise. So if there's a band playing that's got music I want to hear, I'm going to enjoy it. And if I don't want to hear it, my wife loves the shop, so we can do that. In other words, I don't have a problem with it at all. And they've come over and talked to me about it. They went around and talked to every neighbor about it. So, you know, it's not like they're trying to come in there and wreck the neighborhood. And I've lived there probably 35 years, and it used to be peaceful until all them little squares you see got filled in. And now I hear all kind of noise. So if these people around here want to protest about the noise, then they should have been there when they disrupted my noise, and I didn't say nothing, you know. So I love the idea, and hey, I hope it works out for them.
Thank
and
you.
I hope y'all see that too.
Thank you. Anyone else want to? Thank you. Anyone else want to speak in favor of the case? Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Chris Head. It's 1047 North Unity Grove Road, and I'm the closest neighbor right there. That's going to hear most of the noise, and it doesn't bother us. We're all in favor of them using their property's events facility. And they're hospitable to us to let us walk around the pond with our dogs, and I know they're going to be hospitable to the people who want to come to them.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Anyone else want to speak in favor of the case?
Madam Chair and Board, my name is Eddie Crawford. I live at 775 North Unity Grove Road. Where's the bigger map?
There's a pen right there. You can just place it on there.
What was that?
There's a pen right there. Do you see
No,
that?
no, I need the bigger map.
Bigger map. Okay.
Anyway.
You're not on the map. I'll take it.
Yeah, my property comes in almost on the back side of the pond there, kind of catty-cornered. We've lived there and known the Richters since 1984, some of the finest people you want to meet. And this is my property right here, right there. And I don't have any problem at all with the events that they have in mind. I wish the board would consider some type of waiver, though, as far as the parking area being asphalt and everything. I think that would take away from the aesthetics of the place. This place is going to be a lot less used than Nash Farms. I don't believe Nash Farms has a parked area there for the cars and their events over there either. And I wish the board would consider that. I think it would be, you talk about dust-free. If the cars are parked on this nice field grass that they got, it's not going to be kicking up much dust today at all. So I wish y'all would consider that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak in favor of the case? Okay. Anyone like to speak in opposition of the case? Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Deborah Kennard, and I live at 1045 North Unity Grove Road. My property backs up to the pond. Now, the tax map is way off. I mean, from where those property lines are, I think this survey more accurately shows how much of my property, which is this piece here where my finger is on, and another piece here. It's 10 acres. This one's 5, another one's 5 right here. Backs up to their property. Mr. Bevel said that the applicant spoke to all of the neighbors. I've never met the applicant or any member of their family. No one's ever talked to me about this. My first idea that anything was going on was from the zoning department. I'm not against them or anything. I just have questions. So I'll just go ahead and read briefly what I've written. Some of the things have been covered. Let's see. I'm not, like I said, I'm not opposed to them using their property how they choose, and I'm not opposed to their idea. It's wonderful. It sounds great. My daughter just got married in a barn. I know everything that goes along with all this. I am concerned about the rezoning request because everyone is R1, and commercial property just does not fit within the community. Even though it's a great idea, and I know their website says it's their dream, I don't want to rain on anyone's parade. I'm also concerned because Mr. Head mentioned earlier about safety. These ponds are spring-fed, and they're constantly, the water's beautiful because they're spring-fed. There is an erosion issue because of that constant water, which has created a pit on my property, if you will, a large pit. And people are going to be walking around this pond, as they stated, and if someone fell in this pit, you couldn't get out. If I stood on your shoulders, you couldn't get out. It's that deep. Neighbors dump all means of debris in that pit. It's on my property fully, but neighbors, and I don't know who they are, I'm not accusing anyone of anything, but there's stuff in there, there's metal and everything. It's not like you're just falling into mud. Also, a big concern I have is how will the guests know where the property lines are? Because all these years, that 16 for me and the others have stated how long they've lived there, we have existed peacefully without any fences, no trespassing signs. I did put up a no dumping sign once, but that disappeared. I don't know how their guests will know when they have crossed over onto my property because we have paths, some four-wheelers, walking paths, whatever. No one has had a problem with anyone using these paths, and they would attract guests that would see the paths, and then they would suddenly be on my property, Mr. Crawford's property. He said he doesn't mind, and I really don't mind, other than the fact that when someone is on your property, if they get hurt, then now it's on me. And that is my concern about safety. I probably should have had you approach the applicant about how they intend for their guests to know where the property lines are. So I apologize for that, because safety is a concern here. And just because the county code allows commercial conditional use in rural areas doesn't mean we should always do it. And that's really all I have to say. And again, I just want to reiterate that no one did talk to me prior to this evening, and I don't know them. I can't be against them because I don't know them. I've never met them, and their idea does sound good. But there's issues that probably need to be addressed. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else want to speak in opposition to the case? Okay, not seeing anyone coming up, so if I can get the applicant to please come forward. And if the board members would get their questions ready for the applicant. So this is the time that the board's going to ask you questions.
Okay.
So, Mr. Head, you have something you would like to ask?
Yes. You heard her concerns about the property line, and I'm big on safety. because I know that when people tend to, when you have something, they tend to wander off. And I looked at the property; it's very beautiful. Came out and took a look at it. So, how do you plan to address that issue of the safety piece of it?
We had thought about putting up some kind of fencing, from where the property ends, at the end of the neighbor's property that we have the pond with, of the end of his property, and it would keep anybody from wandering any further off, with a gate. I mean, you can't stop people from going and doing, but you can deter it. And we wasn't planning on putting a fence around the pond, but on the south side, we would put up some kind of decorative fencing to border it, to say, this is it.
So you would be opposed to additional requirements, and one of them being putting up a fencing area to block folks from going to the neighbor's house?
Yeah.
Right here's the pond, crosses the dam right here, crosses right in here.
Yeah, I guess you could put up a fence
right
in
there. So that would be, there's a fence down here and then a crossover, so you could put an area here, and then just the other side. This is all fenced along here, all the way up to the road is fenced, and then across here you could fence. There's a little opening there with a gate that we haven't put up yet, but we want to make this look decent in here for a focal point of view, and then a crossover on this side. We had thought of putting something that looked nice there, obviously keep the integrity of a southern traditional wedding area, but make it, hey, you need to stop here. This is, you don't need to go further. And of course, when we have an event there, I'm not planning on leaving and going out of town. I live, my folks live there, and it's where I was raised. I will be there. Got to be there. It's part of responsibility. He's talking about big on safety. If you're not there and someone gets hurt, man, it's a bad deal. But that kind of things is later date of covering those things. But we're very much so wanting to make sure that people are safe, and not control, but watch out for the safety of others. And make sure they stay on our property and not wandering off onto others' property and things like that.
Okay, and then you also are aware that you have to provide parking as it applies to commercial business in the area according to the ULDC code. That we can't, we've already stated that, so I just want to make sure you understand that. So, approval or whatever, that's on the books. I mean, that's nothing that we have control of. It's already law.
How big a parking area will we have to provide?
That would be something you would have to take up with staff at the time, or I don't know what to tell him now, Dante.
Parking?
Yes.
I can address that.
Okay,
that
sorry.
Question. Parking is really addressed upon the size or structure and the use on the property. So depending on what they're proposing at the time, when they get ready to develop an issue for permits, things like that would be addressed based upon actual structure and size on the property.
Okay. So does that answer your question? Okay. I had another question, but I think it was more about the fencing and the safety, and if you're not opposed to, doesn't that be a condition? We can do that. Anyone else have any questions for the applicant? Okay, you may be seated.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, let's call the case, please.
Case number CU-15-07, Medford R. Richard of Locust Grove, Georgia, requests a conditional use for property located at 898 LeGuin Mill Road in land lot 229 of the 2nd District. The property consists of 23.875 plus or minus acres, and the request is for an event facility, outdoor amusement in the RA Residential Agricultural Zoning District. It's in Commission District 1.
We have a motion for this case.
I make a motion that we approve the request and with the 4 conditions, adding the 5th, number 5 with a fence for safety be put up.
I have a motion by Mr. Head. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Alexander, were you seconding? Okay, second. I have a second by Mr. Alexander. Any discussion? Do we need to clarify the fencing requirement?
Could you say it one more time, Madam Chair?
Would we need to clarify the fencing requirement? He said
Saying
put a
that
fencing.
if they're proposing to place the fence on the rear property line, the fence can be placed on any of the designated boundaries of the property. So just saying a fence requirement is technically okay.
Okay, so we're good with that. All right. All those in favor indicate by raising your hand. Motion carried. Okay, next case, please.
Case number CU-15-09, Jack and Deborah Paisi of Boxford, Massachusetts request a conditional use for property located at 4175 Jonesboro Road and land lot 103 of the 6th District. The property consists of 5.095 plus or minus acres, and the request is for a non-commercial kennel in the RA Residential Agricultural Zoning District. The property is located in Commission District 2 and is presented by Ms. Josephine Medina.
The applicant is requesting a conditional use permit for a non-commercial kennel. This is on a 5.095 plus or minus acre property located in 4175 Jonesboro Road. Currently, the applicant has 6 poodles. The applicant has communicated to staff that the dogs will be housed indoors within the primary household. I'm going to direct you to the site plan. Sorry. The applicant has proposed an outdoor run intended to ensure the dogs are not running across the property without confinement, and this can be seen in the southern portion of the primary household. Sure.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry, and that's the southeast portion. In addition to that, there is a metal building, which I'm going to point to. That is located in the northeastern part of the property. This does not meet the standards for non-commercial kennel in the way that it requires a minimum setback from any residential zoning district for any building or structures of 50 feet. The primary residence does meet that. This accessory structure does not. And the applicant has stated to staff that they will only be using the primary housing, the primary dwelling for housing or keeping domestic pets, and do not intend to use the metal building for keeping or housing them. Appendix A of the ULDC defines a non-commercial kennel as any single family residence in the RA zoning district where no more than 10 adult dogs or cats are kept as pets for non-commercial purposes of hunting, exhibition in shows, field trials, or breeding. Surplus offsprings bred at such kennels to enhance or perpetuate any given breed recognized by the American Kennel Club may be sold at such kennels and it shall not be considered a commercial activity. All animals kept or maintained in said kennel must be owned by the individual or family residing upon the lot which the kennel is located. Staff has assessed the criteria points based on the fact that the property is surrounded by residential lots that are larger than 4 acres in size to the north, west, and south of the property. To the east and towards the rear of the property is Marsh's Vineyard subdivision, which contains a 30,000 square foot single family residential lot minimum. From the aerial, staff has also seen that there's a heavy tree coverage on the eastern boundary of the property that is adjacent to a Marsh's Vineyard subdivision lot. Staff is recommending approval of the conditional use with 3 conditions. It will be prohibited to house or keep any domestic pet within any building or structure that does not meet the minimum 50 setback requirement for any residential zoning district. Drains, if they are provided, must be connected to a sanitary facility approved by the Environmental Health Department and Environmental Compliance and Plan Review Department. Notwithstanding any to contrary with herein, no supplemental standards imposed herein shall be interpreted or applied in a manner so as to require any violation of existing building, development, stormwater, and/or other applicable codes.
Okay, thank you. Do the board members have any questions for staff at this time? Okay, hearing none, I'll ask the applicant to please come forward. State your name and address for the record.
Good evening, my name is Martin Shelton. My address is 1356 May Avenue, Atlanta, Georgia 30316. I represent Jack and Deb Parisi, who are the applicants here. Mr. and Mrs. Parisi currently live in New Jersey. Mr. Parisi has retired, and they understandably would like to move south to live. They have 6 mostly champion show poodles who live with them in their house, and in order to continue to have their dogs living with them when they move south, they need in Henry County they need to seek this conditional use permit and ask for a commercial kennel because they have 6 instead of 4 dogs. So they have a house under contract on Jonesboro Road. It's 5 acres. They've chosen in part because it allows them to seek the conditional use permit so they can keep their 6 dogs. These dogs are standard poodles. There's 6 of them. 4 of them are former champions. 1 is a current champion. The other one is being trained, presumably, to be a champion. These are the kind of dogs you see like on the Westminster Kennel Club show. They're nothing like my dog, for sure. They keep them inside now. Their intention when they move down here is to keep the dogs inside with them, more or less at all times. When they let them outside, they do it in a supervised manner because they don't want the dogs to hurt themselves or do silly things. They're pretty highly trained dogs from what I understand. The dog run that they are proposing to put in here, this right here, is intended so that there's basically a controlled space for them to let them out to relieve themselves and occasionally do training with them. They have no intention of letting these dogs run around their property at all. And the conditions that you looked at, the additional conditions that you looked at during the work session, those actually came from the Parisis. I thought there was some kind of confusion about that they may have come from the homeowners association. What actually happened is that the lawyer who works with the homeowners association talked to me about what the Parisis were asking for, and I explained it to them and then suggested that perhaps if there were conditions that would help them be more comfortable with what was going on. And the Parisis suggested these conditions as ways of kind of ensuring that they weren't running, like a commercial, well, I guess it's not commercial kennel, but not running something where you have like, kennels set up outside where the dogs are living outside and breeding dogs and that sort of things. That's not really what's going on. They have these dogs that are living in their house. So the intent of these additional conditions are to ensure that first of all, A, is to ensure that when they're out, when they're not really out, that they're not going to be outside of the house except in the dog run area or on a leash. I suppose if they're going to a vehicle or something, or if they're training outside of the dog run area. The second one, they have imposed a limit upon themselves of not allowing the dogs to be out for more than an hour at a time, and it's a way of assuring their neighbors in Marsh's Vineyards that the dogs aren't going to be out for long periods of time barking, that sort of thing. But that's also because they don't intend to let the dogs out unless they're supervised. And that's what the third condition is actually getting at, that they're not going to let the dogs out, or they're only going to let the dogs out when they're supervised, and they don't intend to let the dogs out unless somebody is there. In other words, no one's going to come, let the dogs out and leave, let them run around. It's only going to be when the precies are, presumably if they had to be absent for some reason, if they had to have somebody come take care of the dogs for a day, that person to let them out in a supervised manner to do their business and come back inside. And the final condition is that they always pick up after their dogs already, so they're willing to commit as a zoning condition that they will make sure they pick up all the waste to ensure that none of their neighbors, even though the neighbors are pretty far away, that none of their neighbors are subject to any sort of odors or anything like that. The other condition that was suggested during the work session about guaranteeing ownership, the fourth condition, there's no problem with that. This property is to be the Parisi's home, and if the having approval of this conditional use permit is a condition of the two closing on the property. So if they don't have the conditional use permit, they're not going to buy the house anyway, and that'll take the problem away. So there's no problem to add that condition as well. I think if you look at the requirements for the non-commercial kennel under the residential agricultural zoning, the proposal that Parisi's have put forward in their application meet all of the requirements there. And while we recognize that the concept behind the non-commercial kennel allows for more than what the Parisi's would do, I think that what they wanted me to stress is that these dogs are essentially part of their family that live in their home, and so that they have no other option but to seek a non-commercial kennel in order to have their dogs with them. So they are simply trying to comply with the law, and that's why they've been willing to agree to other conditions along the way as well, to show in good faith what they're doing.
Okay. Did you have anything else?
Sorry, I just want to add one other thing, which is that we provide the conditions to the Marsh's Vineyards board prior to sending them to the staff, and they indicated their approval of those conditions, and I believe that they are satisfied with what's been suggested. But that's all I have.
Okay. Any of the board members have any questions for the applicant? Mr. Alexander.
Yes, I just want to confirm what you told us. Initially, we were told that those conditions were from the board of Marsh's Vineyard, but now you are clarifying that those conditions were suggestions that you made to the homeowners association. Is that correct?
That's correct. If I could have spoken during your work session, I would have corrected that right away. But my impression was I had to keep silent, so I waited till now to tell you.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else have any questions? I have a question. Or a concern about the conditions, because as a board, and I appreciate the input about the residents and what they plan to do, but the conditional use follows the property. So if something were to happen and they decided they want to move to Florida, there's a conditional use on that property for up to 10 dogs, and then you're saying that anybody else can come in and let those dogs out and do what? You're saying we have to follow that for ages on. So worst case scenario, you can have someone that come in and house dogs and not live there and have other people taking care of them, up to 10 dogs, and their offspring. So we have to think about things like that. So while I appreciate their integrity of their show dogs and things like that, we have to think about the property moving forward if and when something were to happen and they're not there anymore, because this follows the property. So those are things that we have to take in consideration. So some of these conditions that they have, to me, that they have presented, just the wording, I had a problem with just how it was worded, because it just kind of made it open-ended that anybody could come in and take care of the dogs. And so that was my pushback on that. Now, the staff has 3 recommendations, and I didn't have a problem with those. And I think that we might want to have another one, and I would leave that up to the district, the person that's in that district. And I just want to know if you would be opposed to an additional condition about if they weren't buying the house, then what you're saying is if they can't get this condition, then they won't buy the house. Did I hear you say that?
That's correct.
Okay, so they're buying it based upon this condition.
That's correct. It is just a stipulation in the contract.
And see, what I had a problem with is the code, and the staff said there's no problem with it. What I had a problem with is the owner is not the one that's going to house the dogs, that owns it now, and they don't even own the house. So it's almost like we want you to turn the water on before we ever own it, kind of a thing. So I mean, and I'm kind of conflicted, because how can we approve something that they don't own?
In our case file, we have the owner's consent, which is what we need in order to proceed with a conditional use application of someone who is, in this case, purchasing the property.
But in order for us to approve it, it says all animals kept or maintained in said kennel must be owned by the individual or family residing upon the lot. So, and I guess, I know it's a little technical thing, but we're approving it for an applicant that doesn't own it.
Well, can I answer the question?
Yes.
Sorry. So the code that you're reading is basically the law that's supposed to apply to the property as it goes forward, all the way. What the director was saying basically was when it's presented before you for approval, if the owner has acknowledged that they're approving of that use as well, which they've obviously doing to sell their property. That's all that's required for you to legally approve it. Now, what's contingent upon the Pareses is to comply with that law, either the owner now or the Pareses to comply with that law forward whenever anyone's keeping dogs. I would also add that I think the Pareses would be fine if it was permissible within your zoning ordinance to also have a sunset condition on it. So if they sold the property, that the conditional use can be removed. I don't know if that's allowed under your statute actually, but I mean, in the city of Atlanta, we have special use permits which are similar to this. They often expire when the person leaves. But
that would be at the zoning advisory board's discretion. And then one other thing regarding the conditional use, technically you can make it conditional or contingent. Contingent upon the buyers providing legal documentation to planning and zoning that they are now the owners and occupiers of the property. That's another direction you can take just to satisfy the technicality of the definition or the code.
All right. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you. Anyone else have any questions, comments? Okay, you may be seated.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, she's saying he's going to do it. Yeah. Okay, anybody would like to speak in favor of this case? All right, I don't see anyone come up. Does anyone like to speak in opposition of the case? Please come forward and state your name for the record.
Hi, my name is Felicia McMorris, and I'm the president of Marcia's Vineyard Subdivisions Homeowners Association. And I really don't, I decided to come up on the part where speaking against it, when we're not really against it per se under everything that's been said. except for, I think it would be, we were in agreement with the conditions that Mr. Shelton discussed, and we were fine with that. But I think it is a good idea, because I didn't know, and I'm sure no one else on the board knew, that the non-commercial conditional use would be, forever. I thought it would just be with the owner. So I would like to see if y'all would put that condition on this, approval, prior to the approval, that it be like, what did you call it, a sunset? Yeah. When they sell the property, then that non-commercial kennel use goes away, and the next owner cannot have that unless they go through the process of getting it approved. I think that would be a good idea, and I think that would be fair, because it's really, you never know what you're going to get with other people coming in. Also, someone else on the board has a concern that, and I don't really know if it's it's a concern, but who's to say that this could turn into a commercial kennel? Would that be a possibility?
No, it would
in the
have to be
future?
approved for a
It would have to
commercial. Yeah, that would require another conditional use.
Okay, so that's an additional hoop that someone would have to go through.
Correct.
Okay. Well, other than that, we're not really in opposition to it based on everything that has been said. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak in opposition of the case?
I'm sorry, Manager, would you state her name and
Oh,
address
I'm sorry,
for
I
the
thought she
record,
did.
please?
I apologize. Yes, state your name and address for the record.
Okay. Felicia McMorris, that's McMorris, and I'm at 259 Caitlin Drive, Hampton, Georgia, 30228.
Okay, if I can get the applicant's representative to please come forward. Any other questions for the applicant? I have one question, I promise. It's really quick. This property is not inside Martha's Vineyard subdivision? Is
Can
it
you repeat that?
outside?
Yeah, it's outside the subdivision.
So it's just as a courtesy because they're behind them? Is that what it was, because they were notified?
Yeah. This is the Martha's Vineyard subdivision.
Okay,
so there's
I
three
see.
properties which attach to it at the end.
Okay.
And there is a lot of woods in between it, which it's envisioned that's actually going to keep noise from getting to them. Yeah, the conditions are offered as a courtesy, and also because the Priestley's actually are pretty nice people, it seems like, so they.
Well, people could cut down trees, so, we could have also a condition that says that buffer needs to stay. But I would hate, I don't like to tell people what they can do on their property, but if you're using that as saying, hey, there's a buffer there between the barking of the dogs to protect the other neighbors, then that might be something we want to consider. But that's just me talking out loud.
Yep.
Anyone else have anything? Mr. Alexander?
Yes, sir. Are they amenable to lowering that number? They could go up to 10 because a commercial kennel does allow up to 10. So is the 6 the permanent number, or is that?
Well, they don't have any intentions of adding any other dogs. At least Mr. Priestley doesn't. He said his wife said something about thinking it'd be wonderful to have another dog, but he's not really interested in it right now. These standard poodles don't actually live as long as normal dogs. They actually tend to die somewhat early. It's possible that the retired champions may not be with them a whole lot longer. They were hesitant to pick a number of dogs because they don't know what the future holds. But when I asked Mr. Priestley about that, he indicated that he thought it was more likely that they would end up having less dogs than 6 than more. But they'd rather not have the limitation on it because they don't know. But it's not their intention to. They don't actually breed them, except when they want to have another champion dog for themselves. Because you breed these types of dogs with other champions to produce more champions, I guess. And they don't breed them very often. So they have one other dog. They have 3 of these dogs are 9 years old, and then the The youngest one, I think, is about 4 years old. So they have several of the dogs they have are, well, I mean, quite frankly, are probably not going to be around for more than a couple of years. But
Alexander, you mentioned commercial kennels.
Mhm.
Per the ULDC, there is no limit on commercial kennels, but for non-commercial
Non-commercials,
kennels,
I'm sorry.
the limit
no.
is 10.
Okay, but I misspoke, non-commercial. Thank you. That satisfies me.
Any other questions for the applicant? You may be seated.
Thank
Please call the case. Okay, not quick.
The sundown
Sunset.
issue, sunset,
Set.
is that something that I need to put in the motion?
If that's what your desire is, that.
It's at the board's discretion, if you so choose.
So it's called the sunset?
You would have to also stipulate what the
Sunset is.
what the time period is.
Exactly.
So like when they sell the house.
Okay, thank you.
Or, sorry.
That's okay. Do you have any question?
That's it.
And we can
Sorry.
have the time with the motion if you requested.
Okay.
Okay, call the case. Was it already called? No. Please. I don't even know where we are. Late.
Case number CU-15-09, Jack and Deborah Precy of Boxford, Massachusetts request a conditional use for property located at 4175 Jonesboro Road and land lot 103 of the 6th District. The property consists of 5.095 plus or minus acres, and the request is for a non-commercial kennel in the RA Residential Agriculture Zoning District. The property is located in Commission District 2.
Okay, do you have a motion for this case?
Yes, Madam Chair. I'll make a motion to approve CU-15-09 for the conditional use permit with 3 conditions recommended for approval by staff, with an additional 4th of conditional use contingent upon the applicant providing legal documentation to Planning and Zoning Department of ownership and occupancy within 90 days of today's date, and a 5th condition for a sunset that would determine the termination of this conditional use at the time that the residents sold. I don't know how to word that, I'm sorry.
I would say that the Parisis sold the property.
That the Parisis sell the property.
Could you state that into the mic a little bit?
I'm sorry.
Better, so we can hear it for the record.
The sunset condition for the termination of the conditional use at the time of the Parisis selling the property.
Thank you.
Do you have a second? Second by Mr. Risher. Any discussion? The only discussion I have is, I thought it was important that she indicated who sold the property because they're getting ready to sell the property. So that would negate it.
Did she say the applicant's name?
Yes.
She did,
She
okay.
did. Yeah, so that's why
I thought I heard
I thought
it.
that was
Okay.
important to say that. Okay, so I just wanted to make sure that it didn't go away when they sold, she sold, the present owner, that was what I was kind of getting hung up on. Okay, so we're good. Any other discussion? All righty, all those in favor of the motion, please indicate by raising your hand. Okay, any opposed? Okay, motion carried. All right, in our agenda, do we have any public comments?
We go.
No public comment. Okay,
ma'am.
so, motion to adjourn.
So moved.